upon a time they did.
Okay.
Yeah, but they don't anymore. I think Delta still owns a refinery,
Right.
if I remember correctly. All right, let's talk about a restaurant that I know is really, really affordable in Japan and maybe a little bit less so in the US.
Yes, Kura Sushi, that's tickers KRUS, currently dipping about 1.5%, though earlier it was down as much as 11%. And that's after the restaurant operator slashed its sales forecast for the full year and also reported third quarter comparable sales that fell short of Wall Street's expectations. And for those unfamiliar, Kura Sushi does have like a conveyor belt of sushi.
Do we have one here in New York?
Yes, there's one in Flushing.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one in the suburbs where I live,
What suburbs?
in Westchester,
Okay.
Scarsdale.
There's one in London near the Bloomberg office.
Very popular in social media, but management saying that definitely the oil prices are pushing customers to just stay home as opposed to going out for a fun group eating experience here. And the print is obviously leading to price targets across the street. Though also interesting to note that this stock was also one of the most shorted ahead of their earnings, with nearly 22% of its shares being sold short.
Okay, interesting reaction then. All right, next up.
Community Health, that's ticker CYH, currently down about 6.2%, most intraday since April, and that's after Barclays downgraded the hospital operator to underweight from equal weight. Part of the issue is just broader uncertainty for hospitals as regulatory headwinds add to that long-term uncertainty. The analyst also writing that Community Health shares have rebounded since those June lows, which may actually give investors a window for some profit taking, especially given longer-term uncertainty.
All right, Avalon, thank you so much. Avalon Purnell is one of our Bloomberg News equity reporters, and for more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to our Stock Movers Reports. Listen for 5-minute audio reports on the biggest winners and losers in the stock market. That's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen. So the big news today is that, according to President Trump, the Iran ceasefire, it's over.
It's over. Okay.
It's a waste of time. These are the comments that we heard this morning, and oil prices are climbing in response. So, of course, we need to check in with our Tyler Kendall. She is our Bloomberg Washington correspondent joining us from our D.C. bureau. Tyler, give us some context around these remarks from the president on the ceasefire being seemingly over following some attacks.
Yeah, Scarlett, I mean, this comes against the backdrop of what really has been the worst flare-up in fighting since the Memorandum of Understanding was signed last month. It does come in response to what were attacks last night after Iranian aggression in the Strait of Hormuz. Over the last 24 hours, we saw Iran target at least 3 oil tankers in the strait that appeared to be using that corridor that the U.S. is coordinating and hugs the coast of Oman as more vessels are trying to transit through the strait that way instead of taking that route that would put them closer to Iran's shores. Now, President Trump is saying that we could see some additional strikes as soon as tonight. He said that he wouldn't be giving Iran that much notice, but we should also point out that it hasn't just been an escalation when it comes to kinetic action, but we also saw the U.S. Treasury Department yesterday move to lift that waiver that had granted Iran the ability to sell its crude to market. That is now going to put on the economic squeeze on Iran, considering that was supposed to be one of those incentives during this 60-day ceasefire negotiation period to get Iran to the table. So a lot of fast-moving headlines, but Scarlett and Paul, even as President Trump says that in his view he thinks the ceasefire is basically over, he also left open the door for further negotiations. We know this White House has prioritized diplomacy. He said that he'd still allow his negotiators to talk. He just personally thinks, according to the president, that it's not worth their time.
Have we heard anything official from the Iranian side?
We had heard from, not since President Trump's comments this morning, I don't believe, unless any headlines are crossing now, but we had heard from Iran in the wake of the U.S. revoking that waiver, as well as the U.S. attacks overnight that targeted in one part more than 60 IRGC fast boats, that they felt that the ceasefire was over. Iran has been making it very clear that they feel that as part of this memorandum of understanding, they would be able to maintain some control over the Strait of Hormuz. That's been one of perhaps the most largest sticking points between the two sides, and where we've really gotten that conflicting messaging, because the U.S. says that was never part of any deal, but Iran has repeatedly tried to say that in this agreement they were given authority over parts of the strait. How this resolves at this point remains to be seen. Very clear that escalation is on the table, but Iran itself has really been threatening commercial shippers, though for the most part Satellite imagery is still showing us that those ships are transiting through, but it has definitely raised that hesitancy and that concern, considering that we saw at least these 3 tankers, including one from Qatar, a main mediator in this conflict, be targeted within the last few days.
And again, this is why you see WTI up at almost $75 a barrel, and Brent now approaching $79 a barrel. Tyler, there's also a report that NATO...
Hello, my name is DrPaulCottrell. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The markets are open. They've been open for about 45 minutes. The S&P 500 is trading at 7,454. It's trading down from the close from yesterday because of the strikes that have been happening last night. The United States has been hitting Iran. I believe 80 targets have been hit. The VIX is relatively calm. It's at 17. It's really not that big of a deal. I would suggest nibbling at this level. I still have a target of 7,800 to 8,000 for the S&P 500 index. The dollar is relatively stable. Euro is at 114 and the Japanese yen is at 162.53. What has moved the markets has been the price of oil. Now, yesterday, Iran hit or attacked some tankers. I believe they were from the GCC countries. Now, the oil market started trading above that support level of 68.78, and it was creeping up. Right? And I was saying that, well, the trading range might be around 68 to about 72. Well, last night with us hitting Iran, it has changed the dynamics, and we're going to be trading closer to just below $80 a barrel, I think. So there's going to probably be a trading range now at about 74 to about 80. Right now, we're at the low bound of that range. We're at 74.70. I suspect that we're going to have further kinetic action in Iran, and this will perturb the futures market in oil. Now, last night, also natural gas spiked up, but during the European session, and as we were approaching around the 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock a.m. in the East Coast, it started to fade. So natural gas is now trading at 3.264. It was trading in 3.3 range. I'm still shorting natural gas, and I'm just, for tactical moves for the S&P 500, nibbling at these moments, waiting for the S&P 500 index to go up. I'm not shorting the S&P 500, I'm longing the S&P 500, but just nibbling at it, because you don't know that if further kinetic action in Iran might actually do a larger sell-off in the S&P 500. If things get out of control and oil is not flowing through the strait, either because Iran shuts it down, we have to do another blockade, Iran hits the GCC infrastructure, whatever it is, oil will go up above $80 a barrel. And we will most likely see natural gas go above 3.3, maybe even approach 3.5. There's a support level at 7,200 for the S&P 500. Right now it's trading at 7,456. It's possible that we go down to 7,200. But that's a support level. The next major support level is 7,000, and a very strong fib sequence support level is at 6,800. So these are times that if we do trigger those support levels and break, you might want to buy. And just hold it, just wait. It will retrace and it will come back up. There's another event risk dealing with equities, and that is this rebalancing or moving some investments from the Mag 7 into other companies that are tied to tech, but aren't necessarily the Mag 7. So there's a rotation out of these hyperscalers. So beware of that. And another risk for the market is a lot of these tech companies are trying to go to the debt market and issue commercial paper. What that basically means is they're borrowing money. On top of, with that big IPO that came out with SpaceX and Anthropic most likely coming soon to a theater near you, how much liquidity is there really out there to be able to soak up a recent IPO of SpaceX and Anthropic and be able to absorb the debt issuance of some of these tech companies? There's a lot out there that maybe the investing class can't absorb. That might be one of the signs where this might start to peter out. I don't think that it will happen this year. I'm concerned next year. That's why I said we have to take a look at the mosaic at the end of the year and determine what should be done. But I still have that long-term, at the end of the year, S&P 500 target of 7,800 to 8,000. But beware after that. It might sell off and have a 20% correction. Okay, with that, please help support the work that I do. I do all these videos for free. Like it, click the like button, share the links, ask your social media to follow me. Make sure you subscribe to all the different channels that I have. All the links are in the description of this video. And again, you can be a paid member to my Patreon channel or my Substack channel. And you can donate on my website through Stripe, Buy Me a Coffee, or PayPal. That helps support the work that I do because all of these videos are for free. I have thousands of videos out there to try to help people understand the news, understand science, understand how to improve your health, and how to benefit from some of the news that's happening and how it may affect your finances, how it may affect the market, how you may be able to position yourself. And I'm telling you what I'm doing, all right? Just like how I'm telling you how I use the supplements. So please help support the work that I do by sharing links, being a paid member, and purchasing the great products that I offer. I have ebooks, I have course material on immunology and pulmonology that you can purchase from my website. It's really easy. It's only $25. You can log in as many times as you want, download the PDFs, you can watch the videos at your leisure. You learn a lot about how the human body works. In addition, I have supplements that will help to slow down the aging process and get you into a healthy status. So please help support the work by getting the great products. Now, before we get to the news, because there's a lot of breaking news, especially with what's going on with the NATO summit and in Iran, please go to my store and get the magnesium zinc. Magnesium and zinc will help to boost up your immune system and help with brain function. Magnesium is super important if you are concerned about getting early onset of dementia, all right? Brain function, better blood flow, training your brain, learning new things, taking the proper supplementation, that's super important. Magnesium is definitely one of those supplements that you want to take regularly. And vitamin C and magnesium. This will help with your skin. The vitamin C can cross-link with the collagen supplement that I have. Drink the filtered water. The vitamin C, and the collagen will cross-link and improve your dermal layer. So your skin will improve. So vitamin C will help with the skin. Vitamin C and magnesium will help to boost up your immune system. And this supplement will help to improve your brain function. I highly recommend stacking them together. Magnesium and zinc, and the vitamin C and magnesium. Please go to my store, use discount 5 to get it $5 off. I want you to save some money. And use these supplements regularly so you're slowing down the aging process. It works, but you have to be consistent. It's really important. If you follow my advice, you will slow down the aging process and get healthy. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, Trump is talking at the summit. It looks like he's talking with the Syrian president right now.
We've made a lot of progress with Iran too. Wiped out their military, but they should have been done 47 years ago.
And if I could, do you think that that Prime Minister Netanyahu should be reelected? There's an election coming in Israel, or would you like to see him
I can tell you this, he's been a great wartime president. We worked as Prime Minister. So we worked with each other very closely. And we went through a very big thing. We did a big thing together. And in my opinion, he's been a great wartime Prime Minister. I don't know anything about his politics. I'm not sure. I would think he should be popular because he did a very good job. We hadn't have a very good relationship, but he was a great wartime Prime Minister. If you had other Prime Ministers, you know what? They wouldn't be in Israel right now. You know that? They wouldn't be. It would have been blown to pieces by Iran. If you had a weak Prime Minister, you wouldn't have. And if you had a different president, I guarantee there wouldn't be an Israel. Israel wouldn't exist today if you didn't have me as president.
President Trump, data from the Energy Information Administration revealed that U.S. crude oil production set a new record in the month of April under your leadership.
That's right.
Why is it important to keep hitting numbers like this at this moment in time? Why is it important that you were able to get this done and keep it on this trajectory?
Well, when we decided to do this, it's called the denuclearization of Iran. We have to do it. We have to have. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon, and they admit they're never going to have it. But they behave badly. Always behave badly. There's something wrong with them. But when we did this, we thought, well, we'd go much higher, and it didn't go very high. Now it's coming way down, and you're going to see oil drop very low. Now maybe we'll do some other things that could lift it a little bit, but I don't think it's going to lift it a lot at all. I think oil is coming down. There's tremendous amounts of oil. Scott, what would you say about that?
Yeah, so record production under President Trump in his first term, now in his second term, the U.S. is an energy superpower. It's why we weathered the conflict better than anyone else. And they're just this weekend, Bloomberg wrote that there is an oil glut out there. And we think that safe, secure American oil maybe even should trade at a premium to the rest of the world.
So we have, if you add it up, you take Saudi Arabia and take Russia, two big oil producers, and we do more than twice as much. We do more than, so think of it, Saudi Arabia, Russia put together, we do more oil, and that's not including Venezuela. It's pretty amazing. And this all happened.
Now, if you listen to in between the lines of the statement from Besson, if we're trading at a premium to other oil markets like Brent, that's changing the whole dynamic of the spread. Normally, Brent is higher than WTI. So I think he just signaled that it's possible that Brent actually trades lower, or it trades at par with WTI. That's what Besson said, that what he thinks should happen. So WTI may end up being the premium future contract.
Or the country has.
Mr. President, you have no plans to go in, boots on the ground?
Why would I go in there? I go in when they completely either eliminated or whatever happened, or an agreement's made.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if you cut off trade with Spain, does that mean that you're going to have to renegotiate a trade agreement with the EU?
With who?
with the EU, any task force you already have?
We're gonna see what happens with the EU. You know, they've treated us very badly for years, and they took advantages. But look, we're very close to those countries, right? And to everybody in the EU. The problem is they took advantage of the United States for years. It's like him. They took advantage of Syria. He's bringing it back. And I'm bringing the United States back. We have the greatest economy we've ever had. We have the biggest investment. 19.2 trillion is being invested right now in the United States. 3 trillion was the number, the record. Under Biden and under the past administration, they had less than $1 trillion for 4 years. We have 19.2 trillion in 12 months. Think of that. We have the largest amount of money being invested in the country in history. Pretty amazing. 19.2 trillion with a team. So, and they're building factories all over the country. I think yesterday Toyota announced they're leaving Mexico. And they're coming, I'm not that Mexico's thrilled about it, but they're leaving Mexico and they're coming to the United States to do what will be, I believe, the largest automobile plant either in the world or at least in this country.
Mr. President, the domestic question. You announced on the social a couple days ago that Walmart is cutting the price for meat by 15%. How big of a deal is that for American customers this summer?
So Walmart has agreed to cut their prices very substantially because things are going down. We're getting it down. We inherited very high prices. We inherited the highest prices in the history of our country, for 48 years to be exact, but I don't believe that. I think it's in history. So under Biden, they had tremendous inflation. Under the Democrats, we had tremendous inflation, record-setting inflation. And now, inflation is way down. Everything is great. We have the prices are coming down, but we inherited, you know, they talk about they use different words to describe it. They had very high prices. The prices are coming down. And when the oil comes, you know, the oil is coming way down. The oil dropped by 50% in the last month. And when that comes down, it brings everything else down. No, it's affordability. And they came up with the word affordability. You know, like, I take over, I'm there for 1 day, and they say affordability. Affordability. I said, I've been here for more. Remember with the eggs, the first day or 2 days later, I had my first news, and they talked about eggs. They said the eggs, I've done it 5 times. I've been in office for 1 day. And I said, well, I'll do something. In fact, they told me not to order eggs for the Easter egg hunt at the White House. I should use plastic. I said, we're not doing that. And by the time we came, that was a couple of months later, that happened, and we ordered thousands of eggs. And right now, eggs are way down. The prices are way down, and they're coming down further. So they made up a phony word that they used. They said affordability. They're the ones who caused the affordability crisis. I didn't. But I brought it down. And the oil is coming down very big.
Mr. President, Brent crude is up slightly today on the announcement that
Anytime we hit them, it goes up a little bit, $2.
Is that what you mean? Is that what you meant when you said that we might see oil prices lift a little in response to?
Yeah, $2, very little. It's down from, let's say, $135 down to $69. It's dropping, and everything else drops. As oil goes, so goes everything else. But anytime if we hit Iran, oil goes up a little bit. It's all right.
Mr. President, do you think Israel?
We're denuking it. We're denuking Iran. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon. All right, one more question.
So, sir, do you think Israel should withdraw troops from southern Lebanon?
Well, I talked to Bibi about that. Yeah, I think they're going to. I think they want to. I don't think it's a question of me. I think it's a question they want to. And they're getting along with Lebanon. They're signing deals with Lebanon. First time ever. Marco, talk about that.
Yeah, we have an agreement that, and it calls, that's the goal at the end. Obviously, Israel's concerned about their security. But the president did a great job bringing those two countries together for the first time.
It's a big thing. First time in many years, right? So we have a deal with Israel and Lebanon. And yeah, they'll leave. And I think it's going to work out very well. But we're here for this because Syria has turned around as fast as I've ever seen. Well, actually, I've killed the United States around very fast. They inherited from a man who was not smart, not a smart person. We inherited from this because Syria has turned around as fast. And that includes 11,888 murders, most of whom murdered more than one person, okay? We got most of them out, or we have them in jail. And we've done a great job. Washington, D.C. now is considered one of the safest cities in the country. If he came to Washington, D.C. a year and a half ago, he'd fear for his life, even though he never feared for his life before, because it was very dangerous. But somehow his territory might have been a little more dangerous. I joke because, you know, he comes from a rough environment. Would you say that's right, Tom Barrett? It's sort of funny to think. I don't think he'd be too concerned with Washington a year and a half. But we had a very, very unsafe Washington, D.C., and now it's one of the safest cities in the country. We put the military in, this Washington went from being an unsafe to one of the safest cities, and crime is down 94%. We don't play games. We removed over 5,000 career criminals, many of whom came in through the open borders of Joe Biden. We did the same thing with Memphis, Tennessee. We did the same thing with in Louisiana. You have to speak to the governor, because New Orleans, the crime rate is down 78% in a little while, and they had the best Mardi Gras they've ever had. So we're doing a good job, and he's done a great job too. And I thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Russ. Thank you. Thank you guys.
All right, we're gonna go to some clips that are discussing this whole fiasco that happened last night. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics. You can get the powdered version or the veggie cap version, and with a good probiotic, what's gonna happen is you're gonna be able to improve your metabolism, your ability to absorb your food. You're going to be able to improve your immune system at the gut level, reduce leaky gut syndrome, improve the communication between your brain and your gut, and your liver and your gut. Really important. You'll also notice that your skin will improve. You'll be able to concentrate. You'll have better sleep. And your memory will improve with a better gut biome. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the very high quality probiotics that I have. Use discount 5 and you save some money. It's all caps, discount 5.
News for you. America's retaliatory strikes against Iran ongoing after the regime again attacked commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz.
The U.S. official telling Fox targets include air defense systems, coastal surveillance systems, surface-to-air missiles, anti-ship cruise missile sites, drone launch sites, and port facilities inside Iran.
The retaliation extends beyond military action. The Department of Treasury revoking a key waiver as part of the Memorandum of Understanding that had authorized Tehran to produce, deliver, and sell oil on the open market.
Crude prices jumping on the news and raising new questions about the future of the peace deal. Here to react, former Energy Secretary Dan Brighteon. Good to see you, sir. Okay, your reaction to both of those pieces. You've obviously got the strikes on Iranian assets that had just happened. You have the revoking of the waiver as well. It's a 1-2 punch, military and economic. Is this going to get Iran's attention?
Oh, I think it will. I think it will indeed. Thank you for having me. It's good to see both of you. Look, I think the message here is very, very clear. And it's a good lesson to learn. We saw this in the Biden administration where you gave the money up front. And you learn pretty quickly that it's very difficult to claw back. So I applaud the action of maybe putting these sanctions back on or restricting their ability to sell oil in the open market. Now, that is going to have some effect on price, and we saw it today, a 5% jump or so in the Brent. But look, $72 a barrel is a long way away from $100 a barrel, which is where we were earlier this year. So it's the right message to send to Iran. They do not have the leverage they think they may have over the Strait. And it's important that we send this message clearly.
Well, the narrative among energy investors and among the energy market is shifted to there's a glut of oil that's coming. even, OPEC Plus added another 188,000 barrels a day to its August quotas, and enough oil has started flowing out of the Persian Gulf via the sea or through the Strait of Hormuz, and then you got pipelines and other routes, that the market is very well supplied, that we can take the Iranian oil off the market, because quite frankly, China wasn't buying it anyway.
Well, that's absolutely right, Megan. So, your point is well made. This is not really a production issue anymore. I mean, we have a lot of oil in the marketplace. Our challenge now is logistics. It's getting it where it needs to be. And that's the importance of this choke point called the Strait of Hormuz. You can literally stop the flow of oil, which affects the traders and affects the supply in the marketplace. But it's not a production question any longer. We know how to produce oil. Our shale producers here in the United States can ramp up very, very quickly. They can go down very quickly as well. Our challenge now is infrastructure. How do we get the pipeline capacity we need? How do we develop alternatives to these choke points that we see around the world? That's our challenge.
Moving on to this, the United States oil safety net is sitting at a 42-year low.
The Strategic Petroleum Reserve falling to just under 320 million barrels, the lowest level since 1983. Energy Secretary Chris Wright now saying it's time to start filling the tank back up.
That'll happen over the next 24 months. As we're releasing this oil right now because of these flows, we're not selling any of these barrels, we're trading them. We're bringing a barrel out today to get 1.25 barrels back next year sometime. Very different than the Biden administration that sold the barrels to drive down gasoline prices and drained it. We're just borrowing barrels and replacing 1.25 barrels for every barrel we take out.
Okay, so the structure's different here, but how fast can you get the thing filled back up? Is like a next year timeline good enough right now?
I don't think you're going to reach the levels, the maximum levels, roughly 720 barrels in a year or two. But the way the Strategic Petroleum Reserve works is that it comes out like a fire hose because it's under pressure, but it goes back in like a garden hose. It takes a very, very long time to do that. And it's simple physics and it's pipeline capacity, putting that oil back in. The exchange mechanism that Chris is talking about is something that was created in 1975. That's the way the program was designed. You basically exchange the barrels of oil with commercial producers, and they pay interest when they put it back in. So you take a barrel out, you put a barrel and a quarter back in, and that's how you refill it. But we're talking about physical capacity, and it just takes a longer time to fill it than it does to take it out.
What about oil prices in the short run? Dan, I was filibustering a little bit, but can we handle any crude that comes off the market if we have to really begin to fight the fight against Iran again?
Yeah, I think we can, Dagan. We really can. I mean, again, our shale producers are very, very efficient. They can ramp up very quickly. Our challenge is, as I said earlier, though, it's getting the pipeline capacity we need to get it to the markets, get it to the water, get it to the export facilities that we have in the U.S.
All right, Dan Brighteon, thanks for your expertise as always. Good to see you tonight.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver lozenges. They're perfect for the allergy season or the cold season. You can get it in orange splash and manuka honey. Very important to take, especially if you're cleaning around the house or working in the garden or cleaning the basement. Take these prophylactically to prevent you from catching something. It's really important. It has the structural nano silver and it will help to neutralize. Very important to use. And make sure you get a few of these bags for your household. You never know when you need it. And make sure you use discount 5. You save some money. All right, let's see here. With some of the, actually, I want to listen to Bloomberg. I think they're talking about AI.
When to get that monetary policy or fiscal policy support, it really needs to be about earnings here.
It really needs to be about earnings, but I wonder how much oil will play a part into it, because up until today, the idea was that oil is now going to be a tailwind for a lot of these companies. And if there's going to be a resumption in the war, that removes one of the positive talking points for a lot of company management.
That's right. Well, look, and we do see a lot of earnings still, even if you take oil out of the picture. A lot of it is really dependent on artificial intelligence. Look, whether we like it or not, when we're talking to clients, a lot of them are they're concerned about artificial intelligence. I think they like what they're seeing in their stock portfolio, but they also worry about the negatives, the potential job displacement. And so we're telling them, look, you like it or not, we need AI right now. It is the main driver of the economy. It's also the main driver of earnings. And so I think that's really, really important here as we look to this next quarter of earnings season. We're looking for artificial intelligence broadly to account for well more than half of earnings. And so I think it does go beyond energy, although that is important.
You know,
what are the questions you're getting?
You know what's crazy about artificial intelligence is that it can actually give you insight about where to move your money, either tactically or strategically, either over a quarter or over a half a year, even long term. It can do all that analysis very quickly. And if you want PowerPoints, you can just ask ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to do the analysis. It scrapes the internet and then it puts it into a nice PowerPoint for you so you can read it. So you can create your own wealth manager using an AI. You don't need any of these wealth managers anymore that Bloomberg interviews. It's ridiculous.
Companies, their valuations swell. Now, obviously, NVIDIA is one that has shed $1 trillion in market cap, but they do know that this is the dominant theme right now. And so they're asking, is this just a repeat of what we saw in the early 2000s? And we're saying no, but at the same time, we're saying this is why you want to be diversified. And we are very, I always say to clients that I speak to, we have the luxury of being able to look different than the benchmark. We are benchmark aware, but we don't need to be bullied by the benchmark and own benchmark weights. We want to go into those names we have conviction in, but do it in a reasonable and prudent way so that you're not overexposed to a theme.
What is your most?
So basically he's saying that he's going to be able to change the weights relative to what's in the index and get alpha for you. Well, they might be able to do that for 1 or 2 years, but consistently they can't. And if they do give you alpha, maybe it's 2 or 3% above the benchmark. Now, if you've been paying attention to me, just for year to date, you would be able to return almost 40%, while the index is returning around 8%, the benchmark. So you would be returning for alpha 32%, just alpha, if you just listen to me and follow what I'm doing. These guys are clowns, just clowns.
I know, forget premium. We didn't even ask about premium.
No, that's what Matt Miller does. It's like $6 a gallon.
He's nuts, but he's a car guy. We're not car people. So, you know, that it hits differently with us.
How far do you have to drive to get to In-N-Out Burger from your house?
Fortunately, not too far.
See, these are the important questions.
I think you hit on it, Paul. Yeah, it's I'm fortunate to live just a couple miles away.
Well, any question to someone based in LA has to do with driving, no matter what.
Yes. Yeah, my son, who's been out there for years, is like, you know, don't get used to it. I mean, it's just, you know, you got to drive everywhere. You can't walk down the corner and get a bottle of.
It's hard making plans too, because.
It's hard making. He said it's hard meeting new people because you have to. Sure. You just can't walk down on the block and see people. So anyway. All right, so that's our LA talk here. Adam Phillips, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it. Adam Phillips almost got bumped by President Trump, but he survives. So that's good for him. Adam Phillips, Managing Director, EP Wealth Advisors, based out there in Torrance, California, good part of the world there as well. What are you looking at in the market here today, Scarlett?
Well, we've got the FOMC minutes coming out at 2 p.m. today.
Only Michael McKee looks at those.
I know, but it's interesting because it is the first minutes from an FOMC meeting helmed by Kevin Warsh, the new Fed chair. And we know he didn't say a whole lot, or I should say the committee didn't say a whole lot in the statement.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to take a deep dive into the minutes to see what the conversation, the debate was like there. He talked a lot about family food fights, or a good, bad, old-fashioned family fight, meaning, you know, they debate.
All right, we're gonna pivot to MS Now about how they feel about Trump and the NATO summit. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the clarity factor. This gets rid of that brain fog, allows you to concentrate, and over time, you're going to improve that positive neural connection. Your dendritic connections will improve. You're going to be able to have faster memory, faster cognition, So please make sure you take the Clarity Factor every day. Another great supplement to help your brain is to take the Goodnight Formula. It is tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. It'll allow you to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep to consolidate memory, to detoxify your central nervous system, and to be well rested. When you do that regularly, you're slowing down the aging process and strengthening your brain. So take the Goodnight Formula every night. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the Clarity Factor in the morning or in the mid-afternoon, and take the Goodnight Formula at night. It's very simple. All right, let's listen to Morning Joe, because he always gets it right.
Denmark. Denmark doesn't spend money to really help Greenland, but it's an important part of the United States. And it's surrounded by China ships and Russian ships. And that's not going to happen in ships. It's not going to happen. With Greenland, in my opinion, continues to be, that should be controlled by the United States, not by Denmark. And when they wouldn't go along with it, and with all the money we spend to help them with Russia, we don't have to spend any money. We could remove all of our soldiers out of Europe. Because as you probably know, Europe's a very different place than it was 20 years ago. Not different, much different. Much different. They got to be careful with immigration and energy. If they're not careful with those two things, you're not going to have a Europe anymore.
You know, see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. When Donald Trump betrayed Ukraine, and he betrayed Ukraine because he didn't want to offend Vladimir Putin, what did he do? He made Ukraine less dependent on the United States. And what did they do because of that? Well, they created the future of warfare. And what Donald Trump doesn't understand, J.D. Vance doesn't understand, and all those other idiots that went to Ivy League schools didn't understand. I mean, I'm really shocked. I went to Southern state schools. Even I understand this, which is my way of saying maybe they shouldn't have gone to Ivy League schools. Maybe next time, try Southern state schools. But what they don't understand is we don't have troops in Europe to help Europe. Mm-hmm. We don't do U.S. aid across Africa just to help Africa. We do it because in helping Africa, we help ourselves. They say, hey, thanks for the grain. By the way, ISIS is recruiting down the street. And in Europe, they're dependent on us. And by being dependent on us, it has created, since the end of World War II, a massive market. And I hate to break it to Donald Trump, and I hate to break it to J.D. Vance, and I know they don't have a...
And I hate to break it to Morning Joe, but our tax dollars were subsidizing the Europeans' lifestyle. Their social programs that their government was paying for was subsidized by American taxpayers. How? It's really simple. The Europeans were supposed to spend X amount of their GDP to help with NATO. They didn't do that, and we kept on supporting them. But what did those countries do? Instead of actually bolstering up NATO the way they were supposed to, they kept on pushing social programs, free healthcare, free education, richer pensions, all this. They were promoting socialism. And then they over time eventually get their act together and started to create an economic union called the European Union. And then in Brussels, they started creating all of this regulation that started to take place and opened up borders. And so now their culture is disintegrating because of these failed policies in Brussels. But yet they keep on thinking that we should be subsidizing and plugging the holes of their failures. No. Morning Joe, I'm sorry. And, Morning Joe, you don't have the cup of coffee that I have. I'm never wrong. Morning Joe.
authoritarian leaders that can bribe them because they're Western democracies. But Europe, with Great Britain, has the second largest economy on the planet. And as I have been saying for 5 years now to these stupid people that act like history started on January the 20th of whatever.
Yeah, but look at his wife, Mika Brzezinski, the daughter of the National Security Advisor to Carter. Her father was the National Security Advisor to Carter. Now, Carter's administration was terrible. Economically, geopolitically, sold Taiwan down the river. And he was the architect of this idea of the technocrat. That we're going to have our government run by a bunch of technocrats. How did that end up? Not too good. But look at that smirk. Her father has caused more harm than anything Trump did. So why doesn't Morning Joe say that? Oh, he's banging her, that's why.
Term Donald Trump's term started, we, combined with Europe, created GDP every year that's over $50 trillion, twice as much as China's, and about 40 times as much as Russia's. And listen, as much as I would love to say that everything we do out of the goodness of our hearts, that's just not the case. We do it because it helps them, but also because it helps us. And when Donald Trump cuts us off from the world, Donald Trump, he didn't hurt Ukraine, actually. He forced them to innovate and become the future of warfare. He's now going to do the same thing to Europe and make America weaker. I swear to God, I wish the guy would just listen to.
What if it's really important to maintain the war effort in Ukraine as a testbed for this new technology? You think that we're just not watching what's going on? Of course we're watching. And eventually what's going to happen is whatever the lessons learned were on that battlefield or those battlefields in Ukraine will be fed into our military industrial complex and we'll be innovating. So we're watching what's going on. And look at what, especially in the Navy, the amazing technology that with drones, surface and undersurface drone technology that the Navy has. So, you know, I'm sure we're watching. I'm sure we're innovating more than Joe. Now, what did Brzezinski do back in the late 70s and early 80s? You know, it really was late 70s and just 1980. He was giving weapons to the Taliban that eventually ended up metastasizing into Al Qaeda. But, you know, we're not going to talk about that. Morning, Joe.
Ronald Reagan's farewell speech to America one time. Just one time. Let's bring her in now, author and staff writer for the Atlantic and Applebaum, also U.S. national editor and columnist at Financial Times. Ed Lou said it isn't doing too well. It's not doing too well because England is going to play against the Viking in the next round of the World Cup. And also, MSN contributor Mike Barnacle, who says, how can you like a sport that always ends 0-0 or 1-0? Mike will explain that to you later on. And there are so many things to be offended by regarding Donald Trump, especially toward Ukraine. But I've got to say, when he tells the Secretary of Defense, who is play acting as Secretary of War, not to show him any more pictures of Ukraine because it's so depressing, when Vladimir Putin is at his weakest point in 25 years, then you understand just how in Putin's pocket he is.
He's in Putin's pocket. He's in the pocket of people around him who have strange ideas about Europe and what Europe is. He seems to be still captured by an idea that people have been trying to talk him out of for years, a belief that NATO is somehow...
Applebaum, staff writer for The Atlantic. Has there been an article even positive about Trump recently or ever in The Atlantic? Ever? Maybe one? Maybe none? I wouldn't say asking a staff writer for The Atlantic as an unbiased opinion on what's going on.
Paid for by the United States, and that NATO countries spending more on their defense budgets is somehow paying money into the United States. I mean, the thing that's most striking, actually, even about that little rant that you played, is the ignorance. He keeps repeating things that aren't true. You know, Greenland is not surrounded by Russian and Chinese ships. You know, it's not true that Denmark spends no money on Greenland. You know, Denmark supports the entire Greenlandic healthcare system and pays for lots of the defense. You know, it's as if he's captured by ideas that someone told him in the 1970s, and he can't let go of them. And what's gradually becoming clear to a lot of his allies is that actually, you know, you can kind of put him in a box and let him talk like that, and then get on with doing other things. You know, the Ukrainians have gone on with defending themselves, the Europeans have gone on with funding them. You're seeing a massive European conversation right now about extricating America from, extricating Europe from American defense systems, from American technology, from American trade agreements. I mean, he's set into motion a whole disintegration of an alliance that, as you said, quite rightly, was originally built to help and support and spread the power of the United States.
And Louis, Europe is always nervous about President Trump, but there had been a little bit of optimism heading into this summit because, for instance, Trump and Zelensky seem to have been getting on better. And even though the White House won't publicly acknowledge it, Ukraine has momentum in that conflict. There had been some hope that Trump had been, humbled's too strong a word, but had been sort of chastened a little bit by what's happening in Iran, that he might be willing to come to this summit and play nice, or at least nicer than he usually does. And that's not been the case at all. You know, he's threatened to cut off trade with Spain entirely. Obviously, as just discussed, the situation in Ukraine, he's still not willing to really commit. And now he's revived the Greenland talk, which threatens to blow the whole thing up. You know, we're only one day into this summit in Turkey, and it could be headed towards real disaster.
It could be. I mean, the Europeans thought that they'd got him to do the off-ramp from Greenland back in Davos in February. Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, I mean, who's really laid the flattery on thick with Trump. He's kind of NATO's Gianni Infantino, if you like. He thought that that had worked, and that, well, this Greenland, weird Greenland session that Anne was talking about, that wasn't going to recur. But it does. Stuff gets stuck in Trump's head, and it doesn't leave it. You can sort of temporarily push it into abeyance and get him to focus on something else, you know, like Operation Epic Fury, get him to do something else. But he then goes back to zero every single time. So the Europeans, you know, are in a really difficult position once again of trying to flatter Trump, trying to disarm him, trying to modify, you know, his worst instincts, safe in the knowledge that no matter how well they seem to do at this summit in getting him off topic, he's going to get right back onto those topics again. They are just stuck on a loop in his head. And, you know, another of them, of course, is that, you know, Europe doesn't pay for its defense and Ukraine is a welfare dependent. Stuff that is just literally not true. He keeps going back to. So I don't know what the sort of magical strategy is here, except for Europe to do what it is doing behind the scenes, which is to massively increase cooperation with each other, invest in joint defense projects, to try and reduce their dependency on a United States that's run by this man. That's the only thing they can do, but it takes a long time to bear fruit.
Morning, Joe. Morning, Joe always knows better. I think that guy's a clown. All right, let's see here. Okay, let's get to, this was 2 hours ago by Breaking Points, talking about Trump says ceasefire over after Iran hits 5 ships in Hormuz.
It is.
That's right. It's Wednesday.
After all, people getting a lot of bro shows this week, and that's how the schedule goes. We're going to do our best here. So we're going to kick off Donald Trump, some major comments abroad in Ankara, basically saying the memorandum of understanding is over, as well as the ceasefire. This follows retaliatory strikes between Iran and the United States, Iran then firing back at U.S. bases. Probably the biggest exchange of fire since the ceasefire began. I don't even know what the date is at this point.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Along with probably the biggest news is the revocation of the reimposition of American sanctions on Iranian oil, almost certainly to invite a major Iranian response and perhaps a resumption of the war. Oil markets popping a little bit, but still delusional, as has been the case. Turkey, we're going to talk about that. Ryan and Emily covered a little bit of this on Monday, but Bibi Netanyahu all over American cable news to tell us why Turkey is actually our greatest enemy. Iran's over, now it's all about Turkey. Trump making some comments there, Bibi putting his full thumb on the scale to prevent the sale of F-35s, and Bibi actually saying some of the quiet part out loud. So this will be a major tussle between the U.S. and Israel. Wonder who I would put my money on in terms of winning that fight. We are going to talk about Graham Plattner's situation in Maine. There is I would describe it as a full-blown coup attempt now currently happening in Maine. You can evaluate for yourself, but the executive director of the Maine Democratic Party out this morning, Ryan, saying that Graham Plattner should have absolutely no say whatsoever in who replaces him. Full-scale civil war between the establishment and Graham Plattner in perhaps who will replace him. It does appear all signs currently point to him dropping out, but we're not entirely sure yet. We are going to talk about Me Too. Again, I know that this is a bit difficult, two bros on the Bro Show. We're litigating this, but actually a lot of this is going to be reporting. Ryan has some exclusive reporting that he can show everybody for some of the text messages that led up to this exchange between Graham Plattner and his current accuser, which Politico had but did not release, which in and of itself, in my opinion, is a media story. It is not how to do journalism whatsoever. This is in addition to some new interviews from CNN and others of people who are accusing Graham Plattner of improper behavior. And a lot of this is reminding us of the 8 year ago kind of litigation through Me Too, and honestly, a lot of the journalistic standards here. And you do not have to in any way say Graham Plattner is innocent or Graham Plattner did not act very terribly, but to say unequivocally that the way the media is handling this story is genuinely irresponsible. So we're going to go through that. And then Ryan, you've got Kai Newkirk who's going to join you.
Sutter stumbled into a Wednesday show here. And he's, what are all of these socialists doing on the front?
All these DSA communists. But this guy, I'm going to make an exception for this dude because he's currently running for office in Arizona and he's filed an official complaint with the Arizona Attorney General alleging foreign interference by the state of Israel.
I was hoping they would just stick to the issue with Trump, but they didn't. So, yeah, switch to a different channel here. All right, let's listen into Fox News.
Mike Sorrell. Mike, you heard Victoria Coates say
we could be about to strike after the president said, I think it's over with regard to the ceasefire. So you are our military expert. What do we strike and when do we strike? There.
Absolutely. You talk about a strong showing at the NATO summit. If Trump can hold his allies accountable, and most humans don't like accountability, then he'll hold Iran accountable. So the 80 strikes were devastating and predominantly military targets. Now, the question is, what is Iran's response? And Trump will wait for that. If they respond with force, again, look at critical infrastructure. If we can turn out their power permanently, well, that's tragic for the Persian people. Their ability to communicate will be dead. So I would be interested to see if he goes after critical infrastructure. But guys, I got to say this, the most historic NATO summit possibly in our lifetimes. Trump is ultimately trying to make NATO dangerous again. And he showed up demanding receipts, and ultimately our NATO allies are listening. He's saying, show me the money, but ultimately he wants to see the combat power. Show me the long-range missiles. Show me the air defense batteries. Show me the artillery shells. Show me the ability to shoot, move, communicate, fly, defend, and sustain. And ultimately he wants to see results, not just spending.
Yeah, and the reason all this is happening, Mike, is because Iran keeps on attacking ships that don't go through their approved lanes. And in doing so, it feels like the Iranians are not taking the president seriously. And they've said as much in saying that they think that the President Trump is more interested in ending this war and coming to a negotiated settlement to make gas prices go down to a more normal level. But do they think that, or should they think that at their own peril?
47 years would tell us different. They just, as in Trump's words, they just don't learn. We knew this, and nobody can defend or say that President Trump didn't give diplomacy oxygen. But he's come to the point, and you saw it with a rather just realistic realization that, guys, Iran is not going to change their pattern anytime soon. We need to end this regime, and there is no other way than by force. This region understands one thing, and that is power. And Trump is about to show them what that looks like. Our strikes to this point have been devastating. We've crippled their economy. Their military has been decimated, but they are not going to change their ways anytime soon. And I think this ceasefire is dead, and it should have been dead a month or two ago. But it is time, and I foresee the military moving to do big things against Iran.
As we await the leader of NATO, Secretary General Mark Rutte's comments, it looked, and he is speaking now, we are going to listen in. Stand by.
Huge and big, and we do realize what the impact is on Ankara.
It appears and you can tell by that we have lost the feed while they try to get the camera back working as well as the audio. Mike, I believe we still have you here. Strewn throughout the president's press conference there at the beginning of our show, he did mention that common refrain he's been saying now for upwards of 10 years. We are there for NATO. They are not there for us. Mike, in light of the fact that you have all of these NATO leaders in one room following the president's comments from earlier this morning, do you think now NATO helps the United States with the war in Iran, which, to our earlier discussion, seems like it's about to pick up again?
This could be the galvanizing moment where they get involved, as well as the Gulf partners. Hey, guys, ultimately what Trump has been doing here, no other president has had the courage. The free ride era is over. America is tired of paying first, fighting first, and then getting thanked later. It was a feckless response, and it was very strategic stepping into this NATO summit by many of our European allies. They should have been there for us as we've been there for them in the past. But again, there are positive indications here. European or NATO and Canada spending is up 20% in near real terms in 2025. But ultimately, we've got to see the ability to not only defend, but go on the offensive. The European allies in NATO have too long been in a defensive mindset posture. And we've seen what Ukraine has done. And that has changed warfare. That is going to change their spending, and it's going to move NATO in a good direction. But Trump was never serious about leaving NATO. It was about accountability. And partners have to hold one another accountable to bear the load that the United States has been shouldering for so many years, decades. And again, the first president to step in and actually bring receipts, demand receipts of our NATO partners, and have them step up with 5% of their GDP on defense spending. We are seeing indications and we are seeing results. It is going to be a different alliance. And here's one that people miss. Trump was never going to leave NATO, because if you leave NATO, what does that do? It opens the door for China's involvement in Europe, and he was never going to allow that to happen.
Retired Navy SEAL and host of the Everyday Warrior podcast, Mike Sorelli, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time on this very busy news day.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the omega-3. This will help with your cardiovascular health. It'll bring down inflammation, help you to control your lipid profile, and reduce the stickiness of your red blood cells to prevent overclotting. Super important. Take it every day. Very important to take to help with your cardiovascular health and reduce plaque formation. If you're 40 years of age or older, take vitamin B complex. This will help to protect your neurons because of B12. It'll help to rev up your metabolism and help to boost up your energy levels, because the first 4 B vitamins in this complex will help the electron transport chain to produce more ATP. Very important to take every day if you're 40 years of age or older, male or female. Resveratrol. This will help with the basal layer of your skin. It stacks really well with C60. It helps with youthful gene expression, helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence, so your tissues are performing better. Resveratrol soaks up free radicals and helps the health of the mitochondria, so you have more ATP, more energy. So to get that youthful gene expression, make sure you take resveratrol and stack it with C60 to get the max benefit. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, get $5 off any order. Click the link in the description to get to the website and buy the great products that I have. All right, let's listen into Bloomberg.
Will be named, where should you be trading? Well, they're trading inside of where Oracle is. So all of a sudden, I think Oracle levels, which are 30, 40 wide, are great backstop where I think SpaceX might be going. All right, good stuff.
Robert Schiffman, he is the guy to go to here on all things tech credit. He's our senior tech credit analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence, talking to us about the Amazon bond offering, $25 billion in credit. Demand hit $62 billion. Final orders, however, dropped to about $41 billion. But as Robert points out, still much, much more than what was on offer. All right, we have a lot coming up here. We have stocks right around session lows as oil prices continue to move higher. Brent is now up.
Okay, the U.S. will grant Ukraine license to make Patriot missiles. I don't know if that's a great idea, but let's listen into this clip.
Mr. President, will you allow Europe to make Patriot interceptors in Europe? Are you comfortable with licensing that technology? Patriot interceptors to be made in Europe.
And you're talking with respect to Ukraine. Well, we're going to talk about that. It's a defensive weapon, which I like, better than an offensive weapon. It's the best. So I was saying we have an aircraft carrier, which is one of the most beautiful in the world. It's one of the biggest, the Abraham Lincoln. And 2 months ago, we had 100, I told this story yesterday, we had 111 missiles shot by the Islamic Republic of Japan. They were shot at the aircraft carrier over a period of about 1 hour. 111 missiles going to a very expensive ship. And every one of those missiles was knocked down, pretty much most by Patriots, but by other means also, as you know, other less expensive means, because you think better when you do that. But out of the 111 missiles, every one of them was shot down. It didn't hit the ship, and bad things happen, right, when that happened. So think of that, over a period of 1 hour, these missiles are coming at you, and every one of them shot down. So I think one of the things we're going to be talking about is, as you know, the companies, we have great power over the companies. Those companies that make the Patriot and make all of the great stuff, the Tomahawks, all of the great stuff. We have the best stuff. Many things, the Patriot's great, but we have many, many great things. You see that with Venezuela. You see it with Iran. Look, Iran has been wiped out. Iran, their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone, everything's gone. But one of the things I think we're going to be talking about today, a little birdie told me this, about the fact that we'll give them the right to make patriots. We'll show them how to do it. It's very complex, actually, but you'll figure out the complexity quickly. And we're talking about that, and the company that makes them, which is building now 4 plants, all of our companies will be able to do this in 2 to 3 months. If you order a Patriot, now you have to wait a long time for them. Same thing with Tomahawks. We have a lot of certain equipment, but they call it the elite equipment, and you don't need elite equipment necessarily for war. But so one of the things we're going to be talking about is we're going to give a license to you to make Patriots. That's pretty cool, right? This way you can't complain that we're not giving them enough. I said, make them yourself. We haven't informed the company of that yet, but that'll work out all right. I'm sure they'll be thrilled. But they'll be able to do it. You'll be able to figure that out. Most countries couldn't do that. If I said that to most countries, they wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But this is a very ingenious group. And what I like about that, it's a defensive situation as opposed to an offensive. But I think one of the things you might want to be talking about is that. That's what I heard. Little birdie told me that.
Can you clarify, does the end of the ceasefire mean that we are back to a full-scale military conflict?
They violate the agreement every day. They lie, they cheat, they kill people. They've been killing people for 47 years. They knocked out the SS Cole. We lost, 200 people more. That was a long time ago. For 47 years, no president did anything about that. Well, Obama actually gave them vast amounts of money. You'd like this. He gave them a plane load of money, $1.7 billion in green cash. They loaded up a Boeing 757. Remember the old 750? It was a beautiful plane loaded up with cash. They took all the seats out, and they took all of the cash from Virginia, Maryland, and DC banks. They had no money. They took every ounce of cash, put it in, flew it to Iran, and gave them the money. I wonder what these guys thought of when the door opened and cash fell out of this big plane, beautiful plane. And then on top of that, they gave them billions and billions of dollars. And by the way, they gave it to the wrong country, frankly, and want to know the truth. And it began. That was pretty much the Obama deal. That was one of the worst tragedies that happened. That's what happened in the Middle East. That deal set back that whole situation. Frankly, they picked the wrong country. POC. What a terrible deal. I call it the Obama nuclear waste deal, because what he did with that deal is he caused tremendous hardship in the Middle East. It was a terrible, terrible thing to do. And we've been just the opposite. Our deal is a wall to a nuclear weapon. His deal was a road to a nuclear weapon. They'll never build a nuclear weapon under our deal, but I don't know if we're gonna have a deal. We may just do it without a deal, because you know what? It's easier. Because these people, they lie and they cheat, and you have an agreement, and they'll go outside. For instance, they agree, well, we'll never have a nuclear weapon. They agree. Then they go outside and have a news conference where they leak. Then we never discuss the subject. Now, who would believe we never discuss the subject? Because for me, that's 99.9% of what we're doing. It's denuclearization of Iran, okay? So when you ask, our guys can continue, Steve is great, and Jared, all the guys, they know him very well. Yeah, actually, they're working on your stuff too. I wonder I picked 2 beauties. You know what, we settled 8 wars. I got a couple of beauties here. But Steve's great and Jared's great. They're the right guys. And we'll see what happens. But I will say this, Iran, they misbehaved for 47 years. They've killed our soldiers, they've killed our people, and they've killed a lot of people all over the Middle East and elsewhere. And the roadside bomb was their preferred, the preferred weapon was by Soleimani, the roadside bomb, where it would explode under a truck. We actually built trucks with oars, steel this thick, and then all they did was they made bigger bombs. So we have young guys around, not walking around because they have no legs, but their legs were blown off, their arms were blown off, their face was blown off, and they live because of modern medicine. You can do anything, but they're living like in hell. Their whole life changed because of Harangue, and that was 96% of the people that used that night, they were made in Harangue. And so we have a score to settle too.
So within earnings, with JP Morgan and the big banks set to report results starting next Tuesday, what is the data point that you will be listening for? Is it simply earnings growth year over year, the beat rate for companies? I mean, they always under-promise and over-deliver. Is it margins? What will you be watching for to determine the durability of earnings growth?
Well, really all of those things, because everything is funneling into earnings for us at this point, whether it's higher rates, whether it's valuations, whether it's news out there in the latest headlines. Is it going to impact earnings? Because
the S&P 500 is trading at 7,423. It's still drifting lower, so just be patient. Today's going to be a down day, most likely. Trump's going to be speaking shortly from the NATO summit. That's probably going to affect the news. Oil is trading at $75.44 right now. It's somewhat stable, but that news, further kinetic activity could jack up the price to $80 a barrel. Right now, natural gas is at 3.248 and moving down. I'm shorting natural gas, and I have a tactical position to long the S&P 500. But today is going to probably just keep on trading lower, but I do believe that over a near term, that or a very short amount of time, you know, maybe at the end of the week, maybe next week, you're going to probably see the S&P 500 start creeping back up. There's two headwinds with the S&P 500. The rebalancing in certain portfolios, moving out of some of the Mag 7 and into some other stocks as a defensive play, and the activity that's taking place in Iran as a headwind. Another headwind is the need for some of these tech companies to issue commercial paper, to go to the debt market. And some of these investors are shying away from some of this debt, at least at the current yields. Now, if they sweeten up the yield a little bit for the commercial paper, maybe you'll find an investor for it. So people are a little spooked by this commercial paper need by Amazon and Oracle and some of these other companies going to the market. Even Google's going to the market. So, you know, so you have three headwinds to consider here. So today's probably going to be a down day for the S&P 500, but anything can happen with Trump, and he'll be speaking shortly here. In addition, there are meeting minutes that are going to be released at 2 o'clock today that may gyrate the markets a little bit, because it may give a little bit more clarity if the Federal Reserve is leaning towards raising rates or cutting rates in the near future. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the lignans. This will help to improve your immune system, endocrine system, bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals. Ashwagandha root helps to control cortisol levels and blood glucose levels. And turmeric. Turmeric brings down inflammation, soaks up free radicals. You can take these separately, and they will help your immune system and endocrine system, brain function, and cardiovascular health. But there's some magic that goes on. There's synergistic benefits by stacking them together and taking them. So please, take my advice. It's a very powerful stack. get the turmeric, the ashwagandha, and the lignans, take them together. And when you do that, you are supercharging, bringing down inflammation, soaking up free radicals, boosting up that immune system, endocrine system. But by bringing down that inflammation and soaking up those free radicals, you're helping your cardiovascular system, you're reducing plaque formation in the vascular system, and you're also bringing down inflammation at the neuron level and soaking up free radicals so the neurons are healthier, and you'll have better and you'll have a positive neuroplasticity that will lead to better brain function. So please take my advice, stack these. The ashwagandha root, the turmeric, and the lignans. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Let's listen into Al Jazeera.
Negotiations on ending the war, there's serious progress and that Putin wants peace, but the war, as we can see, still continues. Vladimir Putin obviously insists that the Russian army is very successful on the battlefield, it's advancing, and that actually on the one hand, but on the other hand, here in Russia we can see that there are serious problems, that the situation doesn't look particularly bright. You know that Russia has been fighting this war for 4.5 years, and of course Vladimir Putin and while the Russian authorities are seeking Donald Trump's mediation in this conflict, which has no end in sight because they do not literally see any way out at the moment. Well, Donald Trump also allowed the transfer of Patriot technologies to Kiev so that Ukrainians could produce these missiles themselves. No doubt that Russia would respond to this, saying that such a move will prolong the war, as well as NATO countries' assistance package to Ukraine for this and next year worth 140 billion euros. Donald Trump has stated that Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory are an escalation, but they could help end the war. And according to him, it's more complicated for Russia to deal with the strikes than it was previously assumed. So he also said that he's going to talk to Vladimir Putin pretty shortly. So we're looking forward to hearing from the outcome of this talk.
Well, this is a conversation that he's had coming into this NATO meeting. Yulia, you've seen these attacks become more brazen, going more deeper into Russian territory, targeting Russian oil and gas infrastructure. There's definitely a knock-on effect that we've heard from your reporting in Moscow about how people are perceiving this. What is their strategy going forward? Obviously, it is coming at a great human cost, a military cost, and now an energy cost to Russia. What are you hearing from Russian officials? What are they saying? How do they deal with this? And what is the way forward for them?
Well, of course, Russian authorities have acknowledged, that the fuel crisis is underway in this country. And previously, they were denying that, saying that everything was fine, everything was okay, and Russia was able to cope with that. Right now, with all those drone strikes on Russia's oil refineries, the situation is deteriorating, and every day and every night, the Defense Ministry reports about defenses which destroy hundreds, sometimes thousands of Ukrainian drones over Russia's regions, as well as over Black and Azov and other seas. So, they definitely have to do something to that. And according to Vladimir Putin, he said that the only way out of the situation is to increase Russia's defense systems and to basically repair all the oil refineries. But of course, that will take time and a lot of effort. And we know that Russia is one of the, well, not actually one of the, it is the most sanctioned country in the world. And it will be quite problematic for Russian authorities to receive all the necessary parts to repair oil refineries. So, of course, it's a vicious circle. Tit-for-tat attacks continue, and there's no end in sight, as I said.
Yulia Shafalova, thank you very much for that view from
We're going to pivot over to Bloomberg because they're going to start talking about the oil markets. Now, right now, oil markets are trading at $75.72 a barrel, still creeping up. And there's a trend down right now for natural gas relative to the spike that happened during the European session when Trump stated that the ceasefire has ended and the MOU, in his opinion, is over. Right now, natural gas is trading at 3.256. Fair value is around 3.1, independent of what's happening, or excluding what's happening in Iran. So you have that premium that's popping back up. But it is drifting down. I'm shorting natural gas right now. And it's possible that we may see like a 3.150 for natural gas. Oil is most likely going to keep on drifting closer to $80 a barrel. But right now it's at 75.84. There's a resistance level. It's at approximately 80, just slightly below 80. It's around 79.50, somewhere in there. As a resistance level. So let's listen into Bloomberg about oil here.
As a knee-jerk reaction to the surge in oil prices, oil has extended its advance. WTI trading above $75 a barrel. Brent now just shy of $80 a barrel once again. Let's bring in Mike McGlone. He is our senior commodity strategist here at Bloomberg Intelligence. And Mike, this is all on headlines out of President Trump saying that the ceasefire with Iran basically is over as far as he's concerned. This might be negotiating tactics, just kind of a stance to get what he needs to or wants to, because, Mike, the story for oil up until this morning has been we've shifted from scarcity to one where there seems to be more than enough supply.
Well, exactly, Scarlett, because what we did is we accelerated pre-existing trends of the Western Hemisphere supply surplus, most notably U.S. and Canada. And that's going to kick in. That's really going to matter by the rest of the year. Right now, we're seeing on the screen is, it's really hard to figure out what's going to happen in Iran with Mr. Trump. We do know there's no motivation for midterm elections. But the key thing to point out is right now, that price on this screen of WTI is $75 a barrel. That was first traded in 2006 and 2007. That's 20 years ago. Exactly. It's not a commodity that stays up. And the key question I think all traders are looking at right now is, can it stay above 80? What's it going to take to stay above 80? Something shocking. But we just get a normal little detente, which is what Trump means. It's going to head back down to 50 or lower. But key thing I want to point out about today is there's a lot of good information being drawn from today's trade. And that is, it's really reiterating my views that we probably put in a potential opportunity of a lifetime to sell gold and precious metals at the beginning of the year and to sell cryptos last year. Because what you're seeing happening so far in the day is, okay, S&P 500 is down 1%, but gold is down 2%, and cryptos and Bitcoin is down 3%. It's telling you where it's going to go, I think.
Dumb question of the day. Does anybody invest in oil, or do they just trade it?
Well, there you go. Investing in oil is really a bad thing. You have USO. It goes down over time, Paul. That's what I love when I have to commodity people. It's okay. You can invest it, and sometimes it's okay.
Wait. If you're investing, when someone says invest in oil, you can interpret it two ways: in the commodity or in the companies. Now, if you're investing in the companies, they pay some good dividends, and many pension funds, many endowments are tied to the energy sector. So as a retail investor, if you wanted to invest, quote, in oil, you would be focused on companies like Exxon or Chevron or BP. They pay very good dividends. Right? If you want to expose yourself to a larger basket of energy companies, you could play the ETF Gush or DRIP. Now, those are leveraged, so you have to pay attention to the market. There are other non-leveraged energy ETFs. So if you want to, quote, invest, I highly recommend either going into those individual companies, but better yet, get a non-leveraged long ETF and just invest in the energy sector. That's a great way to kind of spice up your benchmarked position for your investment. Everyone should be investing in the S&P 500 or the Russell. And then how much of your portfolio depends on how much risk you want to take. So if you want to spice it up a little bit and take a little bit more risk, put some money into the energy companies. And these ETFs will pay dividends. So you can, for the non-leverage. Now, if you go into the leverage, now those are more tactical trading. I prefer to do macro with leverage. But I've been doing this for a very long time, and I have a PhD in this. So, so not everybody has that level of experience or stomach to be able to deal with the stress. But it's really important to do risk management. But to answer his question, do people invest in oil? Yes, you can, if you invest in the oil companies directly or through some sort of non-leveraged ETF. That's a prudent way to do it. But if you want to be a little bit more risk-taking, you could trade the oil market. And you can trade it a lot of different ways. ETFs that are leveraged, that are non-leveraged, be able to put a long position and a short position in. You can play the option market where you either buy calls or puts or sell calls and puts. You can go directly into the futures market and buy futures or sell futures. There's a lot of ways to play this, right? But I'm shorting natural gas right now and with a leveraged ETF. And right now it's trading at 3.26. So to answer his question, can you get into the energy markets as an investor? Yes. Many people have become very wealthy doing it. But you can also tactically trade the energy commodity, and you can tactically trade the companies. So it just depends on what your risk tolerance is and what kind of style you are. Not everybody is an investor. And again, not everybody is a trader either.
Accreditation, but typically you have to pay stores. The best way to typically invest in highly elastic commodities like energy is through things like the XLE, ETFs, and actually equities. Now maybe in precious metals it's good to invest in. Historically, gold has been the best investment, but it put in a peak in Q1 that I look at it as that might have been a chance to sell of a lifetime. And it's starting to show that. Even like things like in cryptos, people try to invest in, and then you learn the lessons of things that don't have income and earnings. And
you will make more money over a 10-year period putting $10,000 in the S&P 500 through SPY than having $10,000 in gold over a 10-year period. So which one is better for you? Do not pay attention to me. Do not bet against America, and do not believe in the falsehood of the false security of over-putting your percentage of your portfolio overweighting gold. Yeah, you might want to put 2%, 5%, but don't overweight it. Because if you do, you're only hurting yourself. Don't be stupid. Like I said, don't bet against the United States. Ever. Ever. And you will do very well. And the ones that think that they're going to go into gold and they're going to be great, no. Now, just do a time series. Take a look at over a 10-year period, or a 20-year period, or a 30-year period, or a 40-year period, and compare the returns on the S&P 500 versus gold. And you will find that your return is actually higher during the S&P 500. Now, people would say, well, during those corrections, gold did well. But the thing is it always mean reverts and continues to march upward. In terms of equities, it would actually be the fall of the nation if it was just a continually down cycle for equities. Equities aren't going to go to zero as a index. It would be the fall of the nation, and your gold won't mean anything anyways. So just pay attention. And the ones that rush into gold, you don't even own the gold. There are too many people that actually have put positions in for gold in these different instruments, that if you actually try to redeem, there wouldn't be enough gold to go around. So if there was really a crisis and everyone was trying to get their gold, it would crash. So it's almost like a biblical, I take it from like a biblical standpoint. The golden calf, you know, and that the Jews made the golden calf and they were afraid, you know, and then God punished them. Moses punished them. You know, God was unhappy. Moses punished them and they were killed off. Don't view gold as a safe haven. That's the Bible. That is a biblical lesson. But there's always some people out there that think gold is going to do better. It's garbage. Think about it. If people are going to sell gold, if it's so precious and all these people out there are selling gold, they're selling you to buy gold, why? If it's so precious, why are you selling it? Because they'll make the sale, move the money into equities, and make more. That's what's happening.
That's what's happening now. Just as our previous guest said, earnings are great in the stock market, but is the question how long that can last.
Given all the headlines that are swirling around oil right now, is there anything that an organization like OPEC Plus can say or do that changes the trajectory of oil?
Scarlett, I'm sure they're going to try the same things, but the number one thing is between our president and Iran right now. How they work that out, the last thing we want to see is tankers and things maybe getting hit by projectiles from Iran. That would be quite disturbing, and I think that's what the market's fearing. But again, you have to look at the price. Last year's high in crude oil was 80, and right now we're 75. And we all know the average cost of production in this country is around 55. We're the incremental producer. What does that mean for the producers in the U.S. and Canada and Argentina and maybe UAE? And it just means they're going to bring in more supply. You know what Landman's doing.
Yep, absolutely. I'm all over that. Mike McClellan, senior commodity strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence. Give us some thoughts on oil rising here. Again, WTI crude oil up about 7.5.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support the work that I do by getting the great products that I offer. All these videos are for free. I give you some very important information. I tell you what I'm doing to help to improve my health and slow down the aging process, and also how to make some money in the market based on the news. I learned this a long time ago. News moves markets. If you are in tune to the news and you place your investment or trade relative to the pattern recognition that's taking place with the price curves and the news, you make money. It's that simple. And that's how Goldman Sachs makes a ton of money during their trading. So if you want to be a mini Goldman Sachs, just listen to me. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Myotrol. Myotrol will help to build muscle. This is super important, especially if you're 40 years of age or older, male or female. Why? Because when you get older, it's harder to build muscle because of the methylation process of your genes as you get older. You can slow that down by keeping inflammation down, by soaking up free radicals, having a proper lifestyle, taking the proper supplementation. Myotrol has the supplements that you need for gene expression of them to build muscle and to maintain muscle. It has the polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help to have that gene expression. When you're doing some resistance training, your body is getting a micro signal to build muscle. And it's going to send signals within the cell to create more muscle and to have that muscle get larger and have a hypertrophy. Now, when you are older, you have these genes that are methylated. It's harder for your body to express the genes to build the muscle. This helps to do it. So do the resistance training, take the Myotrol. Now, Myotrol will also help with the mitochondria in your cells to have more ATP to be able to maintain and build that muscle. So this is reversing the atrophy that is normal in aging. So we're slowing down aging and we're building muscle. And when you do that, you're also helping your brain function, because having more muscle, especially when you're older, you're building higher concentration of myokines and BDNF, which are neuroprotective. There is a correlation between body mass in terms of musculature and brain function. Now people say, well, a jock isn't as smart and they have more muscle. Well, a lot of these jocks have head injuries and that's why they're stupid. But the thing is that if you pay attention to me, build muscle, you will protect brain function. So it's really important, especially if you're 40 years of age, male or female. Now, if you are an athlete, younger or older, you will benefit from myotrol, especially if you stack it with gladiator barley. You'll be able to build that muscle that you need, that strength for your sport, because you're constantly practicing in that sport or participating in that sport, and your body is fine-tuning itself to be ideal in terms of musculature and fitness for that particular sport. Like running, your body will morph as a runner. If you're going to be a football player, your body will morph over time through training to a football player. So you can find, the body has a way to fine-tune itself for its environment that it's in. It's part of just the natural process of evolution. And over generations, if a series of generations are in a certain environment, they will have genetic predisposition to survive in that environment. So what we can learn from this, send those small microsignals as you're doing your resistance training to rebuild that muscle and to fine tune to a particular activity. Now, what we want to do is fine tune it so you have more vitality in your later years. That means walking, having some fitness where you can run, you can lift things. So we can fine tune this body to have more vitality, just like you can fine tune it for a sport. So it's taking lessons learned from sports medicine and applying it to individuals that are getting older. Now, if you pay attention to me, you will do just fine. And you'll get added benefits. Like I said, building the musculature is going to help with brain function. In addition, if you build back muscles, a lot of people's backs do not have the musculature that they should have, even while they're 20 or 30 years old, especially for individuals that are 40, 50, or 60 years old. Make sure you do back muscle exercises. Your posture will improve. You'll have better venous return flow to your heart. You'll have better lymphatic flow, so your immune system will get better by just having better back muscles. The density of your spinal cord, the vertebrae, will improve. And over time, with doing the stretching and the musculature, you'll actually gain height. Now, you're not going to gain a lot of height, but you're going to gain a couple inches over time. Because what's happening is that you're building the musculature and your spine is getting more straight and not compressed. And so it's a little bit stretched out. Another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that you're actually taller in the morning than at night because of gravity. If you measure yourself in the morning, you're actually taller than before you go to bed because your spine is starting to compress. So if you have musculature that actually spreads out the spine, you're actually slightly taller. But what's more important is the venous return flow and the lymphatic flow. You'll get better venous return and lymphatic flow on top of better brain function. It's really simple. It's really simple. Why do people not talk about this? Instead of having someone atrophying to the point where they can't even walk. So please, take my advice, get the Myotrol. And do some resistance training. You want to do about a 60-40 split or a 70-30 split. Too many people overdo their workout with cardio. Stop that. You want to be heavier on resistance training. 60-40, 70-30 split. More resistance training is better for you than a lot of cardio. And what you'll notice is that you'll be able to control your weight better. Now, next thing that you need is vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is a gene expression cofactor that will help proper gene expression so your cells are performing properly. Vitamin D3 also helps with the cardiovascular system, helps to get denser bone, which is super important, especially when you get older, because there are a lot of people that have brittle bones, and when they fall, if they're older and they break a hip, chances are they're going to die in 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. There's a very high probability if you're in your geriatrics, in your geriatric years, and you fall, you'll be dead in 2 weeks if you break a hip. You don't want that, right? So if you want to reduce the chances of osteopenia or reduce the chance of osteoporosis, make sure you do resistance training and take vitamin D3. Now, vitamin D3 also helps to boost up your immune system because it helps to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis because they're infected. So this is the reason why you take this during the cold season. So there's many benefits of taking vitamin D3. And if you take higher doses of it and follow a certain protocol, you actually can reverse osteoarthritis. So now, digestive enzyme complex. If you're 40 years of age or older, your pancreas doesn't function as well. I don't care how healthy you are. Your pancreas is aging. So it's not producing the enzymes at the proper concentration levels to be able to digest your food. So digestive enzyme complex reduces the load on your pancreas, so it lets the pancreas rest and heal. And the digestive enzyme complex will allow you to break up those proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids, and you'll have better energy. You'll be able to absorb your food better. In addition, it has bromelain, so it helps to break up clots. And it has the proteolytic enzymes in this that helps to break up glycoproteins. That's really important during the cold season. So if you just follow my lead, you'll be fine. And you'll make some money on the market. Just listen and do. It's really simple. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Myotrol, get the D3, get the digestive enzyme complex, and it's going to help to improve your health. And again, it's about lifestyle, proper diet, proper exercise, stay away from processed foods, drink filtered water, make sure you have plenty of sleep, learn new things, have that 60-40 or 70-30 split for resistance training and cardio. Make sure you do stretching exercises and balancing exercises to activate that cerebellum. Super important. When you do this regularly, you're actually going to slow down the aging process. You don't have to be Brian Johnson, that you're spending $2 million a year and doing all this crazy stuff and then end up getting an autoimmune disease, which he's just being stupid. Just take my advice. It's going to go a long way for you. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All righty. Let's listen into BBC and their take on the U.S.-Iran ceasefire being over.
Iran is scum and its leaders are sick and violent. President Trump's latest comments as he said the ceasefire between the US and Iran is over. Both countries have exchanged strikes, each accused the other of violating the Memorandum of Understanding signed last month. At the NATO summit in Turkey, Donald Trump was asked about the state of the ceasefire. This is what he said.
If the ceasefire done, is the MOU dead?
It's a very interesting question. To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. I'll speak to our negotiators. They want to negotiate. They're good people. Steve Wickoff, Jared Kushner. But they have to come back to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars. We make a deal. And they will, if I make a deal with him, we have a deal. And he goes out, he goes, we make a deal. Everyone's agreed. No nuclear weapon. We make a deal. They go outside, talk to the press. They say, we never even talked about it. There's something wrong with them. They're cuckoo. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
Talks will resume after we get through the funeral proceedings. Does this mean that talks with Iran will not resume?
I don't care. They can talk, but I think they're wasting their time. They're a bunch of lying guys. I do my whole life. That's all I do is deals. My whole life is that's how I became president. I guess that's a deal too, right? But I made a lot of money. I had a lot of great success, tremendous success. Everything I did, I was successful. And I deal with these guys, and they say this is from a different school. They're liars. They're cheats. They're sick people. They've hurt their people. They killed 54,000 people as of now.
I've been very critical of Trump when it came to Iran because I'm America First expansionist, not an America First pacifist. Two different types of America First. I'm an expansionist. The only way to solve this problem in the Middle East is to kill, not to be a pacifist. We need to gravity bomb and level Tehran. We need to take over the strait after we carpet bomb with gravity bombs some of the smaller islands north of the strait and the coastline, and have our Marines and our airborne take over that region, take over Karg Island, and take over the oil and gas. With that, slowly move forward with troops. So we're talking large troop levels, maybe 500,000, and destroy the IRGC. That's what we need to do. He won't do it. There'll be a president out there in the future that will have to do it. But I've been very critical that this ceasefire that he did was going to be a false peace. Why? Because the Iranians, the Shiites, the IRGC do not understand anything but force. And the problem is that the Iranians are actually very good at stringing people along. It's part of their culture. Now, there was an American hostage during the Obama administration that I met that was released under the Trump's, I believe he was released under the Trump's administration or late Biden's administration. But either way, he was an American hostage that was eventually released. I don't remember his name, but he was relatively famous because of him being interviewed in prison by CNN. Christian Amanpour interviewed him. So I met this guy at the Harvard Club. And he did his talk about his experience. He's a very good speaker. But he said something that most Americans don't realize. The regime and the IRGC structure is more like mobsters. It's not a country. It acts like mobsters. So are you going to be able to negotiate with mobsters? You're going to have to kill mobsters. And that's what we're dealing with here. In addition, that MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, didn't say anything, to my knowledge, or other people's knowledge, about the current American hostages that are in Iran. There are American hostages in Iran right now. No one's talking about it in the news. I didn't know about it until that former hostage talked about it. Now, he's being quiet about that because he doesn't want to look like a failure. But the reality of the situation is this: Iran will not behave like a country that should in the international community until the IRGC and the theocratic regime is destroyed. And we're the only one that can do it. So get the job done, or it's going to cost more, and more death will happen if we kick the can down the road. So get the job done.
That were protesting. You know, when people say, how come they haven't taken over? They can't take over because they're dead. They killed them. Nobody's going to take over. They have no guns, and the other side has machine guns. And they're killing them. The press doesn't report it. But they're bad people. They're bad people. And frankly, I don't want to waste my time.
I've been saying this on a lot of videos, not just looking at it from an international lens, international foreign affairs lens, but also from a metaphysical lens. This is the battle between Esau and Jacob. And as we get closer to Rosh Hashanah, coinciding with the Sabbath, and there's going to be 2 years of this happening, bad things happen when that happens, not good things. Curses come. Bad things happen to the world when there is when Rosh Hashanah and the Sabbath coincide, especially when it's 2 consecutive years. So the world's going to get cursed. There's going to be some bad things that are going to happen in the world, economically, maybe militarily, but bad things are going to happen, maybe even pathologically. But bad things are going to happen for 2 years, and it's going to start on 9/11/2026, which for the United States, 9/11 is a very creepy date. But it's going to start on that date, and it's not going to end until the beginning of October or so of 2028. That's a long time. And it's getting really close to that 100-year anniversary of the big crash. Remember 1929? Well, most people don't remember it, but you remember your history. Remember your history lesson. 1929 wasn't a good year. Just like how 1918 wasn't a good year. Just like 2019 and 2020 wasn't a good year. History rhymes. We don't understand why. We assume that it's just our human actions that cause it. But there may be also a metaphysical component to it. Yes, humans cause or are active in creating our future, but the lane that the future flows through may be predetermined through the metaphysics. Now, it's kind of hard to describe what I'm saying, but something bad is coming. All right, just pay attention. Listen to the news. You can see the emergence taking place. You're already hearing that NVIDIA is starting to worry about sales. NVIDIA is starting to worry about the circular financing. These tech companies are worried about being able to get money from the commercial paper market. Well, that sounds like a canary in the coal mine to me. Now, that doesn't mean the market's going to crash right now, but it sure as hell could, with high probability, happen during this 2-year curse that I'm talking about, which will start on September 11th. That doesn't mean that on September 11th, everything happens. It's just that the emergence, as we move towards, will start to set in motion a series of bad things that will gain momentum over a 2-year period that could lead to a hot war around the world, very similar to World War II. We're already in World War III, but it's like a semi-hot war. It's somewhat contained. It's contained because of weaponry. But what happens when it metastasizes out and more countries are involved and China decides to take Taiwan? And then Japan says no and they start hitting China. And then we have to get involved. Now you see the problem? As we march towards these 2 years of curse, with everything that's happening, there is an increasing probability of tactical nukes being used. And what does that mean when tactical nukes are used? Do you think that Congress is going to protect your civil liberties when that does happen? Dive into, I'm sure people know the term, but there's a doctrine within our government in the United States that if nuclear war happens, that it will suspend the Constitution and elevate the president as a supreme government head in an emergency situation. Well, we don't have to go too far back. All we have to do is go to the Roman Empire. How did that turn out? When the Senate decided to give full authority to Caesar, to the emperor, you lost your constitutional republic. That's what's at stake here.
I'll let our wonderful negotiators keep talking if they want, but I don't see it.
Those comments from the president come after US Central Command said it fired at more than 80 Iranian targets overnight. These pictures show our blasts in the Iranian port city of Bandar Abbas. It's not clear what was being targeted, but you can see from those pictures the explosions and also flames. US forces say they did target 60 small boats used by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, releasing this footage of an undisclosed location. The American strikes came in response to attacks earlier in the week on 3 oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has not directly claimed responsibility for that, but Tehran has condemned the latest US strikes. And in response today, Iranian forces say they have targeted US military sites in Bahrain and Kuwait, claiming to have struck 85 sites with missiles and drones. Let's remind you about this memorandum of understanding that was signed between the US and Iran, designed to end the fighting. President Trump signed it back on the 17th of June, set out a 60-day timetable for a final agreement between the sides. Talks in Switzerland the next day were almost immediately postponed, but eventually...
As I'm listening to this, an idea popped in my mind to be able to crystallize this concept that I'm talking about. The United States has to solve the problem of Iran before 9/11. If we don't, there will be a curse that will set in motion that's going to hurt the prowess of the United States economically and militarily. Now, why do I say this? Iran is a state of sponsored terrorism. Now, no country is lily white. Every country, even the United States, has their own geopolitical issues. But this is biblical that's happening here. And it's the battle between Esau and Jacob. Now, if people don't take the risk to kill negative Esau and chop the head off of negative Esau, the curse is going to come to the world. Now, I'll take it even further. The Israelis are going to get cursed for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, in 1960s, they were discussing about setting up the Sanhedrin. They decided not to because they wanted the state of Israel to be secular. So they didn't set up the Sanhedrin. Fast forward during COVID. During COVID, the red calves were born, or they were shipped. So it was shortly before COVID they were born, or during COVID, I'm not sure which, but it was around that time period, around 2019. The red calves from Texas were shipped to Israel to make sure that they were observed so they were ritually pure if they decided to do the slaughtering. Now, there are some biblical scholars that are stating that they can't do it because the Sanhedrin isn't available. Now, if that interpretation of why the red heifers have not been slaughtered is because Israel couldn't get their act together to set up the Sanhedrin, don't you think, with everything that's happening, that God is going to punish Israel? I think so, because you got to remember, there hasn't been red heifers for the last 2,000 years. So what it was a sign, this whole COVID thing on a metaphysical level, this whole red heifer thing was a hint to the Israelis, get your act together, get your act together, set up the Sanhedrin, get your act together, stop the ultra-liberalism that's taking place, get your act together. If you don't, there's going to be a curse. So Israel's at fault here. But it's also the wider global community not going after negative Esau. Now, what's the Bible talk about? The Bible talks about Benjamin chopping off the head of Esau. Now, the body, which is animalistic, wasn't allowed to be buried with the parents, with Isaac and his wife. But the intellect of Esau was allowed to. This is the reason why the head has to be chopped off. The intellect was allowed to be buried with Isaac. The body, the animalistic, that was of filth because of Esau's actions, was discarded. Now, this gets really deep in the metaphysics about redemption and the purification of the soul and all this stuff. But Benjamin chops off his head. There's a Benjamin out there that needs to destroy negative Esau. Positive Esau is the head, negative Esau is the body. Iran, with the Shiite community and this theocratic regime, is part of this negative Esau. It has to die. If we as an international community don't do this, there's going to be a major curse. Now, Trump has this window. Now, it is July 8th up to September 11th of this year. If it doesn't happen, something bad is going to take place. Now, I suspect that Trump's going to chicken out because he always chickens out. And Israel is going to be judged for not having the Sanhedrin and doing the ritual slaughter of the red heifers. And the rest of the world community will be judged by not killing negative Esau. Now, that's as simple as I can make it on what I've been picking up for over 2 years. I've been stating this for over 2 years. And I'm not making this up. This is written down in biblical texts. You just got to be able to learn it. It's not easy. To fully understand what I'm saying, you need to read the 5 volumes of the Zohar. If you read the 5 volumes of the Zohar, you will see what I'm seeing. But you can't take bits and pieces of it because you have to have a larger body of knowledge to understand just one page. You almost have to read the Zohar. You have to read the whole thing and then reread it. And the average person isn't smart enough to do it. But the thing is something bad is coming because Trump is chickening out. Now, just imagine from a biblical standpoint, what if Benjamin didn't chop off the head of Esau? A lot of other things would have happened that would not have been conducive for Jacob. The Christian religion wouldn't even happen. And you can just do the counterfactual and realize that the United States wouldn't even be in existence.
Ahead a few days later, and there have been low-level technical talks taking place behind the scenes. That happened through Qatari and Pakistani mediators. At the start of this month, Qatar said there had been positive progress on issues in the memorandum. Both sides had agreed to continue discussions. And then last week, Vice President J.D. Vance said talks in Doha were going well. Both sides, though, continue to trade limited strikes and threats 20 days into that 60-day timetable for a final deal. So these comments from President Trump are not the first to cast doubt on the ceasefire. Let's get some analysis from our security correspondent, Frank Gardner, who is at the NATO summit in Ankara.
Mr. Trump does have a record of sometimes saying things and sometimes not necessarily always following through on them, but I think it's a pretty sobering moment, I think, because I've done a piece for our live page saying, look, this doesn't have to be the end of the ceasefire. It's the biggest violation of it yet by both sides. And the thing is, you've got to remember that neither Iran nor the US want to go back to a full-scale war. But this was a flawed war and a flawed deal. It was incredibly fragile. It would be extraordinary if it had held. The only thing holding it together is that the two sides don't want to go back to a full war.
With me is Pam Gavadi from BBC.
The only answer for permanent solution to this is to kill the IRGC and the theocratic regime. And I think that a hostage that was in Iran, that was American, for 9 years, knows a little bit about how the Iranians work. And I believe he was a born Iranian and then eventually became an American citizen before he became some sort of diplomat, financier, and then he was captured somehow and then held hostage. But the point here is that I think his assessment that they're just a bunch of thugs, they're a bunch of mobsters, is the right assessment, and that we can't deal with them just at the international level and just kill them off. Now, on a metaphysical level, it's really important to get the job done, because if not, the world is going to be judged on this. And then you wonder why Israel is having so many problems. Maybe they should have had the Sanhedrin. But what it is that Israel is captured and taken over by a bunch of liberals.
The Persian, any reaction so far from Iran after their called scum, sick people, a country that is led by sick people?
So we had one reaction from Iran's army's chief of staff, and he has said that if American troops land on our shores, we will make it hell for them, so there will be no way out for them. I don't think
we were able to storm Normandy and push back the Nazis. I think we can storm the Strait of Hormuz and push back the IRGC. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the zeolite. Zeolite will help to detoxify your body. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water. It will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. It's very simple. You can take it every day. This zeolite is very high quality. And again, this zeolite you can take every day. Some other zeolite out there you can't take every day, but this one you can. Another way to detoxify your body, take the heirloom barley. It also brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. And when you do this, you're helping your immune system, your endocrine system, brain function, joint health, and cardiovascular system. And you'll be able to recover after a workout quicker. This is a month supply. Take it every day. It's a great way to detoxify, but also soak up those free radicals and bring down that inflammation. And when you do that regularly, you're slowing down the aging process. And when you do that regularly, you're reducing the methylation of your genes. So you're actually keeping youthful gene expression. It's a very simple idea. Now, gladiator barley does everything that the heirloom barley does, but it gives you one added benefit. It helps to build muscle. Stack this with the Myotrol to get the max benefit. So please go to my store, get the gladiator barley. If you want to detoxify your body, build muscle, bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals. And like I said, by building up those muscles, you're improving your brain function and cardiovascular health. You build up your calf muscles, that's like a second heart, helping to pump that blood back up. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So let's see what the IRGC is saying about how they're going to destroy the American military industrial complex. See, Trump is chicken. All he has to do is just be forceful and not a chicken. But he'll stay a chicken. Yeah, of course he'll stay a chicken. He won't do the right thing, and then the curse will come.
And Donald Trump has referred to landing any troops there, but before he has mentioned that one of the options he's got is occupying one of the islands in Iran, that major oil export is taking place from there. But before that, they started exchanging fire, both Iranians and Americans. Iranians are saying they've targeted 85 targets, American targets in different countries. Bahrain and Kuwait, they say they've been targeted. So they are saying that we will respond heavily, but Iranian chief negotiator Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf has tweeted, and he has said that he's accusing Americans of violating the memorandum of understanding, and he mentions several things. He says they've violated Iranian adjustments in the Strait of Hormuz, their persistent threats of further strikes, their reinstating of oil sanctions and attacks on southern Iran. He mentions, and also he calls Israeli attacks in Lebanon. He says these are the things that are the reasons that Iranians are reacting. But the thing is that Iran wants to exert its control in the Strait of Hormuz. According to the Memorandum of Understanding, they're not going.
It doesn't matter what the Memorandum of Understanding said about the Strait of Hormuz. We have freedom of navigation for all countries in international waters, period, full stop. It's that simple. But the Iranians, because they're thugs, think otherwise. This is the reason why you have to kill them.
Charged for 60 days, but it's vague. It says that Iran can do some adjustments. What are these adjustments? How are Iranians going to manage the Strait of Hormuz? So Iran does not want any ships to go through Oman because they want to have the control, because they're saying that a few days ago, Iranian ambassador to China said that after the 60 days is over, we are going to get some fees. They say it's not a toll, but it's some fees. And the reason for that is that this is an infinite source of income for Iran, whereas oil waivers, as you can see right now, they can be just canceled in a minute or if anything develops.
So, Paul, where do you think it needs talks? Because we had heard that through the Pakistanis and the Qataris that some limited progress was being made, the talks were happening. Will the Iranis just sort of put aside these latest comments from President Trump and continue talking?
So what is clear is that the Iranian appetite for confrontation with the United States has increased tremendously if you compare it to the last year. They're not as scared anymore of shooting missiles at Israel. They're not as scared anymore at firing missiles at the U.S. bases in the region. Will it have consequences in the future that they don't see? Will it fire back at some point? We don't know that yet. But what we know for a fact is that Iranians, and when you listen to Iranian commanders and Iranian officials when they're talking, just one of them yesterday, one of the commanders said that he was talking to Iranian hardliners who don't want a deal with the United States. He said, don't worry about it. This deal is going to break down and we were going to have a war again. So it shows that, they're ready for a war at some point.
Great to have you with us as always. Thank you. Well, what about the view in the Gulf after those fresh strikes from Iran on Bahrain and Kuwait? Let's speak to Mina Al-Arabi, editor-in-chief of The National, a daily English language newspaper, joining me from Abu Dhabi. Hi, Mina, good to see you as well. What has been the response to those strikes?
Hi, Lucy. The strikes, both the Iranian targeting of vessels and then the American strikes, and then the Iranian strikes back on Kuwait and Bahrain are all part of this very shaky ceasefire moment. And yet people felt that the ceasefire is still going to hold. President Trump's remarks from Ankara, where he's hosting the NATO, where he's attending the NATO summit, said that he's done. He is getting tired of the Iranians. And so there is concern that the ceasefire might be called off. The Gulf, certainly all countries of the Gulf, wants to make sure that the ceasefire holds, but that the Iranians do not continue to target vessels. As yesterday we had both the Qatari and the Saudi vessel get targeted. There's concerns that this becomes the new normal. So the mood here is, let's make sure the ceasefire holds. Let's get to the framework agreement, expanding to a full-time agreement, but that requires a real commitment from Iran. And there is a sense that Iran wants to continue to hold whatever it can over the Strait of Hormuz. And that is the concern. And so I think there's been a sense in the Gulf, it can't be a support of the ceasefire no matter what. It has to be a support of the ceasefire that is a serious ceasefire, and that the Iranians actually respect freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, which is important, incredibly important as these talks continue.
Mina, what role do Gulf states play in sort of negotiating this and keeping back channels open, keeping America happy, as well as having some line of communications with Tehran as well?
Qatar is incredibly important. Of course, they have become principal mediators. They work, of course, with Pakistan, but they are really the principal mediators that got us to the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding in the third week of June. They, of course, having one of their vessels targeted, but also previous to that, a Qatari citizen at the end of June was also killed because of military action. They are continuing to say we want to make sure the mediation works, but they also have said in the latest statements from the spokesperson, from the Qatari foreign minister, saying that they will hold Iran responsible. Oman is playing a very important role. They want to see what benefit they can get from any agreement over the Strait of Hormuz. You have the Sultan of Oman go to both Paris and London last week to try to get a European support for some sort of waterway administration and management. Of course, the rest of the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain are all invested in making sure not only the strait stays open, but also that Iran doesn't feel that it is free to lob missiles, projectiles, drones when it sees fit. And the role they're playing behind the scenes is there are talks with the Iranians, indirect talks from some of these countries, but of course all of them are talking to the Americans also to make sure that any long-term agreement ensures the security of the Gulf and ensures the security of the waterways.
Mina, great to have you with us as always. Thank you.
Alrighty.
We're having the big meeting in a little while, and I'm gonna really.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. It has the multivitamins and the minerals that you need on a daily basis, but you get a lot of other supplements within this compound. It's very comprehensive, shown on the screen here. You can read it closer on my website. But take it every day. You don't need an extra multivitamin now. Just take this, all right? But take it. It's very important to take every day. There were a lot of people that weren't taking it and they would just take a multivitamin. This is way better, way better. Take it every day, all right? Now, what this will do is it's going to help with brain function, allow you to concentrate, help with sleep, help with musculature, help to improve your cardiovascular system, help to improve your immune system and endocrine system. Your body will have a steady burn of energy, no crashing. You'll have more vitality. Your metabolism will be revved up. You'll be able to control your A1C levels. You'll have a slimmer tone of your body, especially when you're doing some resistance training and some cardiovascular training, like a 60-40 split. It's very powerful. And if you suffer from migraine headaches, you may find that the frequency of those migraine headaches have greatly reduced and the severity greatly reduced. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Boomer Boost. And like I said, this has all of the minerals and the vitamins that you need, but you get a lot more out of this. That will help to slow down the aging process. It's very important to take every day, but if you follow my protocol, you're going to supercharge it. Now, how you supercharge it is by taking the probiotic, by taking the Max 35 or cleanse, the C60, the turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans. That's a great combo that will help to slow down the aging process. If you do that every day, you're going to get these compound effects, and you're going to look at yourself in the mirror in a year, and you're going to realize, wow, things are improving because you're keeping that inflammation down and you're soaking up those free radicals. Collagen helps the dermal layer of your skin. It also helps the health of your nails and hair. Helps musculature, bone density, and joint health. So please take my advice and get the collagen. It's very high quality. It's a month's supply. And C60, which can be stacked with the Boomer Boost. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. By soaking up free radicals, you're helping your tissues perform better. Take a teaspoon a day, preferably on an empty stomach in the morning, but take a teaspoon a day, every day. You'll notice that you're recovering from a workout quicker. You'll have more energy. You're soaking up those free radicals, helping the health of your mitochondria within your cells. There's less stress in the cell, less inflammation. And by soaking up those free radicals at the vascular level, you're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL. When you do that, you're reducing plaque formation. That's really important. So you have clean vascular system. For the neurons, it'll help to reduce the stress, reduce the inflammation in the neuron, help the health of the mitochondria within the neuron, so that neuron can produce the neurotransmitters to improve the positive neuroplasticity. What that basically means is that you're going to think faster. You're going to have better memory. You're going to have better cognition. And you're going to have better motor coordination. Please take my advice. Get the C60, take it every day, teaspoon a day. And like I said, stack it. The magic is the stacking. All right? So some people, they only want to take the C60. Fine, that's going to help you. But if you really want to radically move the needle and slow down the aging process, stack it. C60, Boomer Boost, turmeric, ashwagandha, lignans, Max 35, and the probiotics. So you're covering all the systems, all of the systems that you need to slow down the aging process. Use discount 5, you get $5 off. You can use the discount as many times as you want when you reorder. There's no limit. And use the products regularly. And when you do, you're going to get that compound effect and slow down the aging process. All right, I'm in my mid-50s. I'm in my mid-50s. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been tweaking the protocol ever since I was 16 years old. Not that many people would say that they were on an anti-aging kick, and they're, since 16, but it works. It works. Just pay attention. Just follow my lead. Some people are leaders. Some people are born leaders. Some people are, they just kind of just go with the flow. You just follow my lead, you will do fine. Oh, Trump is
ballistic missiles
Trump
from
is
a
talking
nuclear-powered.
Trump is talking at the NATO summit right now.
Not in the new Air Force One because of security concerns involving Iran. You've spoken today twice about them possibly assassinating you and possibly being successful. Did that concern have something to do with it?
Well, I speak about it a lot because, the life of a president is very dangerous. It's 5.2%. You know what a race car driver is? 1/10 of 1%. A bull rider, that looks pretty dangerous to me. It's 1/10 of 1%. No, it's 5.2%. Is you don't make it. You should have told me, you're an excellent reporter. You should have told me that years ago. Maybe I wouldn't have run. It's a very dangerous profession. No, I'm number one on the kill list for Iran. They're lovely people. I'm number one. So I don't know. I can't tell you that, but I don't really care because I'm doing my job and I'm doing it, I hope, better than anybody's ever done it because we have a country that's hot and really, really successful. But I mention it only because it's on the list. I mean, it came out. There was another list came out yesterday, and I'm number one on. I like being number one on TikTok better, but I'm number one on the list for killing. Go ahead.
Hey, Sean McCreasy, New York Times. But why aren't you flying the new plane home?
Say what?
Why aren't you flying on the new Air Force One home?
It's flying to Europe to one of the big bases, 2 or 3 of the big bases where we can show it to the people. And we'll be going home by normal methods. But we have it going to Europe to a couple of bases, actually one in particular, but it's going to go to a couple of bases, stop so the soldiers can see it because it's truly magnificent. Yeah, please. Go ahead. You want to go? Okay, go ahead.
Mr. President, harici media Tunçak Koç, Türkiye. Mr. President, it seems that the war with Iran may start again. What do you expect from your European allies?
I don't think it's going to start again. I think it's going to go very quickly. They hit a couple of ships, and so we hit them much harder. When they hit, we hit 10 times harder. You know, we hit much harder than they do. We have a lot better equipment than they do. We may even, somebody asked before, do you think you'll hit them tonight? I said, we might, yeah, we might. But when they hit, we hit. You know, it's what we use their language, we speak their language. No, I don't think so. I think anything that happens is going to be over very quickly, and we'll only make it safer, including for oil. Oil is going to be very free, very easy, and it's going to happen very fast. We have the Hormuz Strait, the boats have pulled out. I mean, it is a gusher of oil right now. We have a lot of oil. And no, anything that happens is going to happen very fast. We're not looking for long term. Okay, go ahead, Red.
MS Now. You said today that countries.
You're with who?
MS Now.
MS Now. That's a failing network. Why would you want to work for them? MS Now. Can you imagine? They wanted to get away. They took the name NBC because they were embarrassed by it. Go ahead, let's go. When do you hear this question?
You said today that countries like Spain, Italy, and the UK were not there for the US and its war with Iran. Should those countries be attacked, will the US be there for them?
Well, I'll tell you what, number one, Spain has been very bad, but you know, Italy's been good, and almost all of the countries have been good. They just had a bad moment. They didn't help us. We didn't need the help, but if we would have wanted the help, I said, by the way, if I want help, Sir would rather remain on the sidelines, and I didn't like that answer. UK gave an answer that was sort of weirder than that. They went out. I said, would you like to help? They said, we do, but we want to wait till the war is over. This was not in the spirit of Winston Churchill. So, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I can only say if there's one word that comes out of today, it's unification. I've never seen anything like it. Every one of those countries, they love us, they love each other. That was tremendous unification. It was a nice thing to say, and it was a very fair question, too. Yeah. Green? Yeah, you want green, right?
Thank you, Mr. President. Eda Turul from Haber Global TV, Turkey. Mr. President, after your meeting with President Erdogan, can you tell us whether you and President Erdogan reached an understanding on Turkey's return to the F-35 program and the future of U.S.-Turkey defense cooperation? And do you believe U.S.-Turkey relations are entering a new chapter right now?
Well, I had a great relationship in my first term. You remember Pastor Brunson, he was put in jail for 35 years, and I called. He was an evangelical hero, actually, very good man. And I called President Erdogan, and he let him out. I didn't pay anything like Obama and Biden paid billions of dollars all the time. I never paid any for anybody. I just said, let him out. Let him out. But in this case, I didn't say it the second way I said it the first way. I said, look, he's a good man, he's highly respected, and the evangelical, and I'd like you to let him out. And it was in my office, in the Oval Office the following day, Pastor Brunson. I had a great relationship. When Sleepy Joe Biden got in, bad things happened with a lot of things between the border. Everything was bad. We were laughed at all over the world, and we had a very bad relationship with a lot of countries. I think Turkey was one of those countries. But that changed on November 5th when we had the election. And it's one of our best relationships. We have a great relationship. And they're talking about the F-35 airplane. And it's the best plane, and everybody wants it. And we have to make a decision who we give it to. I mean, my inclination, because he stayed out of, he's not a huge fan of Bibi, and he's not a huge fan of Israel, but he stayed out of that war. He could have gone into that war very easily, and he didn't. At my request, he stayed out of that war. He's been a very good ally. I mean, Marco could tell you, we have a very strong relationship with Turkey. You know, it's a very big country. It's a very powerful militarily. It's the second most powerful country in NATO. It's a NATO country. So whether or not we do that, I haven't totally made up my mind, but my inclination is to say, look, he's done everything. He's helped us in so many different ways. And you know who else has been good to us? China. China never came into the war. They get 50% of their oil from Hormuz Strait. They never came into the war. They never said, I'm going to send a ship in 5 destroyers along each side of the ship. He never did. No, he's been, President Xi's been great. Everyone's been sort of great, to be honest. You know why? Because they respect our country again. They laughed at our country. They thought we were a bunch of fools. They saw a president that couldn't talk, he couldn't walk. It was a disaster. They lost respect for our country, but now they have more respect for our country than they've ever had before. Thank you all very much. We'll see you back. Thank you very much.
There you have it, President Trump wrapping things.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This is a very effective toothpaste to be able to neutralize, whiten your teeth, reduce inflammation, help the health of your gum line. It has no fluoride. Again, it has the structural nanosilver. It's a very high quality toothpaste. Get a few tubes of it for your household. I have structural nanosilver gels. You can get it in a tube form or the quick dispenser called Renew. Either one will work for you the same way. It's dual purpose. You can use it as a daily skincare. You can put it on a wound and it'll help to heal the wound. And it'll help to neutralize. So it's perfect for the cold season or the allergy season. Lightly coat your nostrils and it'll help to neutralize. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nanosilver gel or the Renew. Very effective. All right, let's listen into Bloomberg.
Number one on the kill list for Iran, adding, I like being number one on TikTok better. President was asked repeatedly about what is coming next, what the next steps are in Iran. In most cases, he would only say that the country will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, and referred to oil prices, saying that they're going to try to keep them coming lower, even though they are sharply higher today. Crude oil futures in New York at last check up about 8%. Right now, WTI is up 6% above $74 a barrel. Brent crude is just shy of $80 a barrel, up 7%, both coming off their highs of the session. We're going to get into a little bit more about what the president said when we talked to Oliver Crook, who's there traveling in Ankara with the president on behalf of Bloomberg News. Well, let's put a finer point on these markets right now. Charlie Pellet was watching and listening along with us, and the reaction on Wall Street since this morning's bell has been visceral. Charlie, where should we start here?
Well, right now, got to begin with oil. You hit on it briefly there, but worth repeating, Joe. WTI up by 6.1%, as you correctly pointed out, off session highs. 74.78 though, where we stand on crude. We've got Brent back below 80 now, 79.12 a barrel. Does remain higher by 6.7%. So bottom line here, oil higher, stocks are lower. The SOX is gaining, up now by 1.5%. The VIX just above 17. In terms of equity markets, S&P 500 index down 37, well off session lows, down 0.5%. Dow Industrials down 637, lower now by 1.2%. Nasdaq Composite Index down 0.2%. The VIX again holding just above 17. The SOX pairs repeating, up by 1.6%. Your 10-year 4.58%. Spot gold is down 1.2%. 4,057 the ounce, while West Texas Intermediate crude up 6%. 74.71 a barrel. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News now wherever you get your podcasts. And that, Joe Matthew, is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, we do appreciate it. Thank you. Charlie Pellet will have more on the markets not too long from now, about 12 minutes away at the top of the hour, as always, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We are off our lows, but it's hard to call this a decent trade today, with a lot of concerns about rising energy prices and the way forward in Iran. Unclear after 45 minutes of hearing from the president exactly what the way forward is right now. He says they want to make a deal. They don't know how to make a deal. He also called them scum earlier today, suggesting that he would allow talks to continue, but had no expectations that they would resolve in anything better than what we have right now. Bloomberg has a big footprint on the ground right now in Ankara, and we want to spend some time with Oliver Crook, Bloomberg's Europe correspondent, who was listening and watching along with us. Oliver, it's great to see you as we prepared for the sun to set in Turkey this evening. What rose to the surface for you here? The president didn't seem to have much of a vision for the way forward in Iran beyond it never having a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. I mean, the sun sets over what has felt like a marathon over the last 24 hours in terms of the news flow from the President of the United States. There's so many topics really dense in news, whether it's talking about NATO, hitting those commitments, huge amount of news flow out of Ukraine. But of course, the thing that rose, I think, to the top for everybody, for markets, for politicians, for the leaders in the room were his comments on Iran, the sort of unprompted comments in that sort of conversation beside Mark Rutte, who has really gone to great lengths to try to sort of orchestrate a very sort of coherent NATO meeting here, laying things out very easily for the President of the United States, laying the groundwork for weeks before the meeting. But of course, the question came during that early press conference in the day here when he was asked whether he thought the ceasefire with Iran still stood, and he said that it was effectively dead in his eyes, that there was no point in continuing the conversation with Iran. That obviously sent the oil market into a bit of a frenzy. But as you say, Joe, after this press conference, the one that really closes the day here, I don't really know where we are, whether or not it sounds like the President of the United States sort of dialed that back a little bit. He was asked about oil prices, about whether we would sort of launch back into sort of full war mode. He said he didn't think so. And again, it's very hard to sort of establish where we are. But again, I think for the participants here in NATO, for Mark Rutte, there is a massive sigh of relief. The sort of comments on NATO itself, on the alliance from the President of the United States were very different at the end of this meeting than they were before. Before, it was all about criticism. It was about Greenland. It was about NATO not showing up in Iran. At the end, he said that the word that sort of ends the day, that really defines the day, is unification.
Oliver, great. We want to add the voice of Bloomberg White House correspondent Jeff Mason, who's with me here in Washington. Jeff, the president said, "I predicted everything. I've been right about everything, and I haven't for a long time. That's how I got to be president 3 times." Still going back to 2020, but still, if that's the case, would he have predicted this MOU falling apart? He said it's over.
Well, he's in a position to predict when he's the person who gets to decide. And that's what he's doing. And yes, let's fact check 2020. He did not win the election, so that is false. As far as Iran is concerned, he's giving multiple mixed signals, which is also, I might add, sort of how he's done this strategy the entire time. Yeah. But it is very difficult to read, and you can see that in a little bit in the reaction from the markets. First, he says the ceasefire is over, the deal is over. He said in this very press conference, I don't think I want a deal.
Right.
And then later in the same press conference, he said, when he was asked whether the Iran war was going to go basically back into full swing, he said anything that happens will be quick. So what does that mean? I would also add, what does it mean for him politically? If he does get back into a longer battle, then that takes away that 60-day deadline, which was a key part of the MOU, which was going to end right as the fall campaign season was kicking off. So now all of that is up in the air as well.
Strange post from the president, and some reporters were keen to ask about why he did not travel with the brand new Air Force One, gifted by Qatar, which spent a lot of time in a hangar with the Secret Service and other protective forces going over this thing to make sure it was clean and safe for the president to use. He posted, I guess this was late last evening, or no, it was earlier this morning, as a matter of fact, 8:42 a.m., to honor our brave men and women of the military. We're sending the brand new, truly spectacular Air Force One to the United Kingdom to give them a chance to tour the aircraft. Everyone is so excited, we thought they should be the first. He goes on, Jeff, to say, for old time's sake, we'll be taking the former Air Force One from Turkey to Mildenhall, a short trip totally worth doing in order to give our great military heroes a chance to appreciate our beautiful new addition to the Air Force fleet. He was asked about this because he said repeatedly that he's the #1 kill target in Iran. Is there a concern that this plane was not actually clean and prepared to travel to the Middle East?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's a spot-on question, though. I mean, he said multiple. It was very jarring to hear him talking about repeatedly not being sure if he would make it. Not only because it's jarring to hear a president talk about himself perhaps being killed, especially one who has faced, as we know, multiple assassination attempts, but also because of the implications of that. If any foreign actor, any actor for that matter, were to be successful in assassinating this president, that's massive. And that has massive implications for everything, for foreign policy, domestic policy, markets, safety, security. Right. So to just kind of muse about it openly, really, really unusual. And raises a question about the plan.
He seems to like this idea of walking away from the table, whether Iran responds to that or takes him at his word. I guess we'll find out together. Jeff, I appreciate your coming in, as always. My good friend Jeff Mason, White House correspondent here at Bloomberg with us in Washington. Oliver, thank you. I hope that you travel safe.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Super Strong Relief. This will help to reduce the pain from arthritis, a tension headache, pulled muscle, a sprain. It works within 90 seconds or so. It's a great way for relieving the pain temporarily. So please go to my store and get the Super Strong Relief. This stacks really well with the collagen and the collagen that I have, because the collagen and the collagen work together to help rebuild joints, especially from a sports injury or arthritis. So you want to block the pain and then rebuild the joint. So please go to my store and get the Super Strong Relief. And it also helps with tension headaches. It's a topical, so it's really easy to use. Now, Max 35. Max 35 or Cleanse or Max 14. They're at different price points and parts per million. But they will help to boost up your innate immune system. It's very easy to do. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. Swish in your mouth, gargle, about 20 seconds or so, and then swallow it. You're going to be neutralizing and improving your oral cavity and your oral pharynx, maintaining a mucosal barrier and helping the health of your epithelial cells. When you do that, you're boosting up your innate immune system. Super important to take during the allergy season and the cold season, but by doing it every day, you are maintaining a healthy oral pharynx. Super important. If you get sick regularly, this is a great way to stop that. So please, take my advice, get the Max 35 or the Cleanse. It's Max 35 or Max 14 or the Cleanse. They're at different price points, but take a teaspoon a day, every day. That's the end of my broadcast. Just to recap, the S&P 500 has been coming back up. It's retraced. It's at 7,473. The low point of the intraday trading has been 7,421. I still have a target of 7,800 to 8,000 for the S&P 500. VIX is trading just below 17, and oil right now is trading at 74.46 post the conference that Trump just had. And natural gas is trading at 3.224. I'm shorting natural gas and longing the S&P 500. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.